siltation sump and temporary stormwater controls, but we can modify that.
We'll do it as we go.
Yeah, well, I just modified that to make it a temporary forebay.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to comment, I think John made the recommendation of the access around the retention pond as, what was the recommendation, 8 foot?
8 foot.
And then it's 6 foot. I thought that 6 foot seemed reasonable because of what Jeff was saying, is that it's right there so close to the road. You could just pull off the road. I mean, it seems like you could access it pretty easily. So that seemed reasonable to me, which is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it more of access around the whole thing as opposed to getting to one corner of it, so to speak. And I don't know if this is big enough for that to be a problem or not.
But why would you need access around? I mean, typically you're accessing, like you said, the spillway and the outfall. That's why you need to get to the other side typically.
Right.
But in this case, the spillway, it's all right there, like right next to the road, basically. All I'm saying is it seemed like a reasonable explanation, so. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I'd agree with that. You know, the only reason you'd probably want to get all the way around it or onto the other side would be to dig it out if it clogged up and you needed to replace the soil, but in that case, you'd have a crawler and you'd crawl in from the street side and work your way back. You know, so you don't have to be on the bank necessarily. It just doesn't seem big enough to really warrant that kind of situation. I had a question on the rain garden and maybe on this too. These are designed as dry on most of the time they're dry.
Yeah.
Except during what 10-year storm, 50-year storm.
We provided calculations that show that if they're filled up to the very top, they'll drain in 72 hours. So 3 days.
Okay. I'm thinking of another project that we're having difficulty with at the moment.
Different kind of...
So that's good. I like that answer.
Well, actually, that was an infiltration basin too, right? That's not draining, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's everything I have. And, I would suggest we move on to a suggested motion.
Yeah, do. Okay. Sure. This is long. There are a lot of these that have the word standard next to them. Those are ones that we can, if you all want, we can advertise those and have a public hearing on those and then have those adopted as like standard conditions for all the common driveways, unless you make an exception or something for some reason.
Gotcha.
And they wouldn't have to be read every time.
So this would be a precedent if we decided to do that? Would we read them this time?
You'd have a public hearing and vote on it,
Yeah, we have to read them this time.
I understand it, yes.
Yeah.
So
But you've flagged those.
Where are those flagged?
Yeah, at the
They're
end,
friends.
it's going to say standard.
Good idea.
Standard.
okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Maybe you could just say the following are all standard and just read them quickly.
Okay. You ready for the novel?
Yeah.
And Jeff, have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
If there's...
It's fairly standard.
Well, I was going to say, do you want me to pause after each one?
I think there's nothing controversial in there at all. Almost all the notes that we suggested to be added were all things that were just discussed.
I'll speak up if I have any questions.
Yeah, just flag one if you have an issue. Try to get through it.
All right. I move to make the following findings of fact for the common driveway special permit for 35 Dreamwald Road. Number 1, the Susan A. Fiffen, is it Piffen?
Fippen.
Fippen. Sorry. Fippen. That's hard to say for me. Trust. Maureen O'Connor Hurley and Kimberly Stewart, trustees, filed an application for a special permit for a common driveway serving 3 lots at 35 Dreamwald Road with the town clerk on March 30th, 2015. Number 2, the property at 35 Dreamwald Road contains about 4.05 acres and is in the Residence R-2 zoning district. The planning board endorsed a Form A plan dividing the property into 4 parcels on April 9th, 2015. Number 3, on March 16th, 2015, the Zoning Board of Appeals approved a special permit under Section 610.B of the Scituate zoning bylaw to create 2 50-foot frontage lots as lots 1 and 3. Number 4, the plan shows soil disturbance and vegetation removal as generally limited to what is necessary for constructing the common driveway and its drainage system. The proposed stormwater management system has been reviewed by the town's consulting engineer, Chesia Consulting Services, Incorporated, whose comments have been addressed with the revised plans. The common driveway meets the standard of Section 720.7A. Number 5, the common driveway has a varied surface width of not less than 14 feet. An email from the fire chief indicated that he approved the width. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7B. Number 6, the common driveway is accessed from Dreamwald Road, a public road in Scituate. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7C. Number 7, the water line is shown on the common driveway plan. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720-7.7D. Number 8, the common driveway cross-section shows a top course of 1 1/2 inch of bituminous concrete over a 1 1/2 inch bituminous concrete modified binder and a 2-inch bituminous concrete binder over a 15-inch processed gravel subbase. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7E. Number 9, the common driveway is approximately 270 feet in length. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7F. Number 10, Chesia Consulting Services, Incorporated, indicated the stormwater management system is satisfactory. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7G. Number 11, no impervious area is located above the major components of the proposed septic systems. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7H. Number 12, a small wetland with existing vegetation will remain on the north side of the common driveway. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7I for screening. Number 13, the fire chief approved a 20-foot by 45-foot area of the common driveway and Lot 3 driveway for an emergency vehicle turnaround. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7J. Number 14, the consulting engineer indicated that stopping site distance requirements at the entrance have been met. The common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720.7K. Number 15, based on these findings and information submitted by the applicant and reviewed by the board, the common driveway meets the requirements of Section 720 of the Scituate zoning bylaw. Do you want to?
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
if you, yeah,
vote on those? The
that's how
findings
you
of fact?
usually do it.
Yeah. So do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
So, since we have just voted on the findings of fact, based upon the testimony presented at the public hearing and these findings, I move to approve the special permit with the following conditions. Number 1, one common driveway shall be constructed according to the plans entitled Common Driveway Special Permit Plan prepared for the Susan A. Fiffen, say it again. Fippen, why am I having a hard time with that? Fippen Trust by Morse Engineering Company, Incorporated, dated March 12, 2015, with revisions through May 28, 2015, and as further revised to meet these conditions. Number 2, lots 2, 3, and 4 shall access over a single common driveway. No further extensions or attachments of any other roadways or common driveways or other access to any other lots besides those created by the plan shall be permitted. And this is a standard condition that we are potentially proposing to have a public hearing for standard conditions. Right?
Right, yeah.
Number 3, necessary approvals from the Board of Health, the Conservation Commission, the Fire Department, the Building Department, and Department of Public Works shall be deemed conditions of the Planning Board approval. This is also a standard condition that we are considering for a public hearing. Number 4, no new underground irrigation systems shall be allowed to connect to the town's water distribution system or in any manner use municipal water. All irrigation systems installed in Scituate must be supplied by on-site sources at the expense of the property owner. This is also a standard condition. Number 5, the common driveway agreement. A common driveway agreement shall assign to the owners of lots 2, 3, and 4 the responsibilities and costs of maintenance and repair of the common driveway and emergency turnaround, including snow plowing, as well as the catch basins, rain gardens, grading, and all other improvements for stormwater management in the common driveway easement. This would be a standard condition. The responsibilities of maintenance shall include all requirements of the operation and maintenance plan, which shall be attached to the agreement, together with other typical maintenance such as snow plowing, driveway repair, and any Cape Cod berm repair. This would be a standard condition. The agreement shall require annual certification by an engineer that the stormwater system is being properly inspected and maintained per the operation and maintenance plan. The operation and maintenance plan shall also be provided to the planning board as a standalone document. Number 6. That's not a standard?
Yeah, I guess that should be standard.
Yeah, that would also be a standard condition. Number 6, the standard format for the planning office shall be used. A final draft of the agreement shall be provided to the planning board within 2 weeks of the approval of the special permit. The agreement shall be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. This is a proposed standard condition. Number 7, the finalization of documents. The plans for the common driveway shall be submitted to the planning board for their signature after the expiration of the 20-day appeal period of this special permit. The plans and special permit shall be recorded together at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. This is a proposed standard condition. Number 8, the required prior to the planning board signing the plans. So, number 8, the following notes shall be added to the plan. All lots on this plan shall not be further divided or subdivided. Next bullet point, the common driveway is owned by the homeowners. It shall always remain private and shall never be maintained by the town. A common driveway agreement assigns to the owners of lots 2, 3, and 4 the responsibilities and costs of maintenance and repair of the common driveway and emergency turnaround, including snow plowing, as well as the rain garden, infiltration basin, grading, and all other improvements for stormwater management in the common driveway easement. Next bullet point, new construction must comply with the Zoning Board of Appeals decision issued March 16, 2015, revised April 16, 2015, which allows for the development of 2 50-foot frontage lots. Next bullet point, no new underground irrigation system shall be allowed to connect to the town's water distribution system in any manner, use municipal water in accordance with the policy of the Board of Selectmen effective October 8, 2014. In accordance with this policy, all irrigation systems installed in Scituate must be supplied by on-site sources at the expense of the property owner. And that completes condition number 8. Number 9, the following notes and plan changes shall be added. First bullet point, existing specimen trees to remain shall be protected by a snow fence installed at the drip line of the trees. Next bullet point, no stormwater may be discharged into the infiltration basin or rain garden until these measures are fully stabilized. A location, or a temporary forebay stormwater control will be created.
For stormwater control? A temporary
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
forebay
temporary forebay for stormwater control during construction shall be located on the plan. Next bullet point, rain garden detail/plan view shall be revised to include 3 feet of soil media, a low-level maintenance drain, and then also a, would you say, an overflow
in the bottom of the basin with a riser and a cap.
cap?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is essentially, that's the description of the low-level
Maintenance drain.
Okay, well, we can just
Yeah,
skip
in
that then.
parentheses, in the bottom of the basin with a riser and cap, close parentheses. Also elevations, spot grades, and plants key to the planting schedule. 5 feet of sod between the gravel filter strip and the top WQW elevation shall be provided, detailed to reflect the actual site conditions. Next bullet point, the detail for the infiltration basin shall be revised to include a stone section between the forebay and the basin consistent with DEP details. An easement, next bullet point, an easement to the town shall be added to the plan for the drainage pipe in the wetland. And that is the conclusion of the conditions of condition number 9. So now condition number 10, construction. A pre-construction conference will be required prior to the start of construction, including the planning board's consulting engineer, the site contractor, and the town planner. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Number 11, prior to scheduling the pre-construction conference, a schedule of construction activities shall be given to the town planner, and the applicant shall provide funds to cover the cost of inspections and attendance at the pre-construction conference by the town's consulting engineer. This is also proposed to be a standard condition. Number 12, the town planner is to be notified when construction begins and when construction is completed. All clearing and earth-moving operations shall only occur while erosion and sedimentation control measures approved by the town planner and shown on the plan are in place. Such control measures shall remain in place until the town planner determines that the danger of erosion or sedimentation no longer exists. This is also proposed to be a standard condition. Number 13, additional soil testing shall be performed at the location of the recharge system and roof dry wells for each dwelling prior to the start of construction of the driveway. The test shall be witnessed by the board's consulting engineer. Number 14, construction of the common driveway shall be supervised by a registered professional engineer who shall certify in writing to the planning board at completion that the driveway and drainage structures were constructed in accordance with the approved plans. This certification shall be accompanied by as-built plans signed and stamped by a registered professional land surveyor and the supervising engineer. Inspections by the planning board's consulting engineer will be required for staking of limits of drainage basins and roadway limits prior to clearing and grubbing, grading of drainage basins, placement and compaction of gravel subbase, placement of base or / binder, and placement of the top course of the common driveway. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Number 15, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the board's consulting engineer shall inspect the lots and notify the board and building commissioner that the grading conforms to that shown on the common driveway plan. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Number 16, construction work shall not begin prior to 7 a.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. on weekends, and shall cease no later than 7 p.m. or sunset, whichever is earlier. No construction is permitted on Sundays and federal/legal holidays. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Number 17, there shall be no parking or idling of vehicles on Greenwald Road during construction. This is proposed to be a standard condition of, not specifically Greenwald, but any shared use driveway. Common use, sorry. Number 18, No certificate of occupancy shall be issued until the planning board and building commissioner are satisfied that access, construction of the common driveway, and installation of necessary utilities are in full compliance with the approved plans and the special permit. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Administration is the next section. Number 19. The applicant shall post a bond for $5,000 prior to the beginning construction of the common driveway to guarantee completion of site work, landscaping, and cleanup of the site. After the town planner has inspected the site and found grading, loaming, and seeding, cleanup of earth materials, and construction debris to be complete, these funds shall be returned with interest to the applicant. This is proposed to be a standard condition. Number 20. This special permit shall be void if it is not recorded at the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of the date of filing with the town clerk. The owner shall provide proof of this recording to the planning board. This is also planned to be a special or a standard condition. Number 21. This special permit shall lapse within 2 years from the date of its issuance unless substantial use or construction has commenced prior to that time in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9. This is also proposed to be a standard condition. Number 22, failure to comply with any condition of the special permit shall cause it to be deemed invalid. And finally, this is also proposed to be a standard condition.
Great.
Second.
Have a second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Let's all say 3 times. Pippin.
Pippin.
Pippin. Like fit. Pippin.
Yes.
There it is. Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you for reading all that.
Thank you for coming before us.
Carl, with the Form A, it has nothing to do with what we're doing here. Somebody has a Form A, they go forward and they build a house. They're prohibited as of October 18th in an irrigation system. How is that controlled? I mean, who would be aware of that? It's a Form A.
They're doing some well regulations, so they're supposed to have a private well. And otherwise, I think it would be through the plumbing permit. You know, they have to do a plumbing permit to connect to, you know, some source of water.
So an irrigation system would require
Thank you, John.
a permit from
Thank you, Jeff.
Board of Health or, okay.
Yeah, and also I think, don't they get a plumbing permit from you guys, from the building department?
Yeah, if there's any connection to the house system or any, yeah, they get plumbing and they also would need electrical. I mean, you can't run it without electricity.
Yeah.
So there'd be both of those things. The Board of Health is authoring the well regulations, the private well regulations.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Attorney from the Board of Health to put a well in?
You will,
Not yet, no.
no.
get your wells in now.
Soon. Stay tuned.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have about 8 minutes.
Yeah, as I say, we're almost on time here.
See if we can knock some other stuff out.
Yeah, so we had a motion. They haven't voted this 3,500 yet? Okay. Because it's the, oh, no, we're not quite ready yet. Because it's, well, why are we doing this? Situate needs something called a hazard mitigation plan to be in effect to get grants from FEMA. And it's a big cookbook type of plan. There's, you know, all sorts of guidance from FEMA on everything that has to go in it. There are lots of maps. There's lots of assessment of risk of different hazards and so on. And there was some, I was actually not directly involved with it, but it was supposed to get onto the warrant for $25,000. It didn't get on the warrant. The money was not available. So what Tricia is having us do is she's taking some money from, I think it's her technical assistance, she's asking if Conservation and Planning would put up some money towards this thing. So we would need to put up $3,500 towards it. We're getting the whole plan for $25,000, which is pretty good because there are some firms out there that are doing it for like 50 or 65. We talked to MAPC, they said they just did not have the staff available to do it. We talked to Martin Pillsbury. So I guess what I'm asking is if you all would be willing to take $3,500 of our budget, which we can't really do anything with after June 30th anyway, and it's the end of the year, if you would be willing to allocate this for this hazard mitigation plan.
How much is
Will it
left?
get spent this year? Will it get spent this month?
We'll start out with it, and then we'll carry it over to the next fiscal year, because we need it. This is part of the 25,000. Tricia thinks she can find the other 10,000, but this first 15 is intended to get him started in this fiscal year.
But will it, if it rolls over into the next fiscal year, will it effectively reduce next year's fiscal budget for the planning department?
No. If it wasn't going to be used, it would just go back to the general fund. Which I guess would be good in some ultimate scheme of things, but it wouldn't help the planning board at all for anything.
How much money is left in that fund for us? In other words, how much do we have left between now and the 30th of June?
We've got about $3,700.
So she wants to take most of it.
Well, I mean, it's a plan that you really just absolutely have to have.
I understand that. So we do have the 3,500. Are there any other earmarks for any of that money between now and the end of the fiscal year?
No, because we set aside the $350, right, for the,
We have $615 after we pay, if you vote to pay for the 3,500. So we have money to get through the end of the month
But-
with the 350 set aside.
oh, after the $350, we still have
After
the,
take 350 out of the 615, and we still will return a couple hundred probably to the general.
The goal
Yeah.
is not to return any, but at any rate,
Right.
I'll move the $3,500.
oh, great.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
So we're done.
Okay, so what else do we
I
have?
don't have to write a check.
Do you want to do some
Well,
bills really quick?
if they're wrong, you do.
Wait a minute.
Doing accounting here?
Disregard those first few pages. That's a different one.
Oh, okay. Okay, I move that we approve $3,500 to VHB.
Oh, that's what we just did.
That's what I thought, yeah. I was like,
But this is separate, okay, sorry.
That's the
this is the actual purchase order, so, okay. So I move that we approve the purchase order to VHB for professional services for preparation of the hazard mitigation plan, as well as $2,720 to Chesia Consultants for the engineering peer review for 36 Dreamwald, the common driveway, which we just spent 45 minutes doing. And also $233.60 to Chesia Consulting for the construction inspection for the Glen. Also $77 to the Registry of Deeds for Plymouth County for the submittal approval, recording fee for the planning board signatures. And $870.07 to Amory Engineers for construction engineering services for Benjamin Studley Farm. In addition, $300.29 to Amory Engineers for the construction engineering services for 61 Border Street stormwater permit. And then finally, $47 to J&R Graphics for business cards for Laura.
Oh, don't worry about that, that's, you guys signed that already.
Oh, yeah, it is, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're right.
Good, second.
Second?
So,
All those in favor?
Aye. I have to sign these. Are you waiting for several signatures?
I'll hang on to that one, so we can, yeah.
Do we have any minutes?
Yep, we do. Maybe somebody else wants to.
Yeah, I wasn't here at the last
No.
meeting, so.
Move to approve the minutes, the Scituate Planning Board for May 28, 2015.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That was quick. That was very efficient.
Great. And, one quick little thing we could talk about
Yeah.
is next Thursday, which is the 18th, the zoning board is going to be considering the Zero Foam Road floodplain special permit. They had, I believe they had approved it.
No, they had denied it. It was adjudicated and came back, was remanded back to the zoning board of appeals.
But it was adjudicated by the neighbors, so that's why I'm thinking that they probably approved it.
But it's been remanded by court.
Right.
But anyway, it was,
The neighbors appealed it.
yeah, the neighbors appealed it. So when you read the remand, a lot of times they'll say, well, zoning board, you gotta vote for this, or you gotta vote against this, or something. This one isn't like that. This is more like kind of tossing the thing up in the air and see where it lands. I'm sure you read it, Bob, and I don't know if that was your impression too.
Yeah, it doesn't really, it's not very directive, I guess is the right word.
So, one of the things that they did with it was they said, zoning board, now you have the benefit of this Doherty case, and, if you want to pay some attention to that, this is your opportunity to do that. So I don't know if any of you are interested in the planning board writing any kind of a memo, or
What is the story amendment? Would you please,
the Doherty, the Dohertys had two lots in, the houses and the septic systems were going to go in the velocity zone.
this is Edward Foster Road.
Edward Foster Road. The planning board, it was split, but they didn't get the 4 out of 5 votes that they needed for the special permit. So it was essentially denied. And they appealed it, and it went up to the Supreme Judicial Court. It went up to the top level, and they found for the planning board. They said, the planning board did the right thing by looking at flooding in a broad sense, that flooding didn't just have to be standing water, that it could be, didn't just have to be moving water, it could be standing water.
It was essentially an overwash zone, and it was also inside the 1975 boundaries of the flood map
Right.
for the town.
Yeah, it was within that district, so they found all those things.
Right.
So, so that was what Doherty did. So it allowed the planning board or whatever board to turn down a floodplain special permit without it being a taking, and, with a ability to look at flooding in a broad way instead of just, a narrow way.
Too bad floodplain special permits are no longer us.
Could I borrow
Yeah.
a pen from somebody? Thanks.
But
The
that
only
may
thing,
come up when we do this EPA building blocks exercise that we're going to do.
right. What I would say, and Bill may want to chime in on this too, because I think it was just Bill and I of
Yep.
the present board members who were there at the Doherty case, where it was a 3-2 vote, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And needed to be 4-1, but it was 3-2. It seems to me that it's such a close call that I'm not sure I'm comfortable having the planning board's position one way or another. I mean, it is what it is. It was denied, and the denial was upheld by the SJC, but in fact, it was not a very, how to put it, strong, or it certainly wasn't a unanimous denial. There are opinions on both sides.
Yep.
And it seems to me that, from my point of view, I wouldn't want to impose that as a standard for anyone else, because it was just such a close thing.
But I don't know if if that's really the standard we're talking about here. I think it's the standard of review that the SJC acknowledged was correct in the planning board case. Whether someone agreed with it or not, it was the standard of review that was being contended, and that was what ultimately went to the SJC. So I don't know anything about this particular case you're talking about, but it would seem like that standard of review is something that we would want to make sure is the same standard of review in this particular instance as well.
Well, yeah, I think you could write something that wouldn't necessarily take sides, but just talk about what should be reviewed, what should be considered, and that sort of thing. And, if you want, I can work on something and send it around and see, if you like it or not.
Can you send around the decision?
Yeah. Yep. So.
Yeah, certainly.
Open up an old wound.
What's that?
Open up an old wound.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
The development of the standard was really ongoing as we went through that whole hearing process.
Yeah, it wasn't black and white in any way.
Definition, and here's the standard for review. And we were all over hell and half of Georgia in terms of coming back up and looking at what we were going to use as a definition.
Right.
I'm
And I think
assuming
if-
those bills, Laura.
3?
What? Yeah,
And I think if you went back and you did it again with a different board, you'd come up with a different conclusion.
But ultimately, I think
could.
it doesn't really, to some ways, it doesn't matter, per se. I mean, yes, it does matter, like what Bob's saying, but ultimately, the Supreme Judicial Court had a decree, right? They made the decision, so now we have to adhere to that decision.
No, what the decision was, as I understand it, was an affirmation of the process that we used to come to the conclusion.
Right. And that's,
Yeah.
if you want something, I don't think we should necessarily take sides on the particular facts in this case. It should be more endorsing a process.
Right. I think that's reasonable.
yeah. Okay, great. Do you want me to go get,
Yeah, a little late. Let's get going.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way, and I absolutely should have, so thank you.
So we spent, I think, without rehashing the whole thing, I think that if you came back up and you reviewed the logic behind each of the person's decision, you'd find out that it was all over the place. And one of the votes was big, it's ugly, and I don't like it.
Right, it was again, if you're looking at the process, I guess that's legitimate, but certainly that's where you want to start.
I don't think you want to read any facts of this particular thought. I guess I have to read it. I don't know anything.
Yeah, probably. I know, doesn't sound like a great idea to me either.
It says signed signature documents for registry of deeds land.
All right.
Is that what she was referring to?
Write your congressman on that. That whole program is so unbelievably flawed.
we have
It's nauseating.
So I get 46 people on this petition. It just says they support it.
Okay. We need to read this?
I don't think so.
I just indicated we received it tonight.
Okay. Sorry for being a little late. This is the continuation of the public hearing for site plan administrative review for 46 Watch Hill Drive, known as Inley School. And is there somebody here representing the school site?
My name is Tom Peterman, Peterman Architects, architect representing the school. And I'd like to thank you for making time for us on the agenda tonight. This is a continuation from the hearing that was on May 14th, I believe. We were sent away at that time with, asked to produce 3 things for this subsequent hearing, which I'm going to present to you. One of those things, and I'll take them in order, was to get a determination from the Architectural Access Board to see if, in fact, the portion we're showing in the proposed design needs to be made accessible or not. The local disability commission, as you know, did determine that the accessible parking spaces we're showing next to the existing art barn was something that was essential to the accessibility of that building, since it's used for special events, at times even when the school is closed. The porch is a little more complicated of an issue. It's not a program area, it's not an entrance to the school, but it is not accessible in its present form. So after exchanging documents with the State Architectural Access Board and several communications by phone and email, they asked to actually come in and meet with them because it was sufficiently complex that they really need to kind of talk it through. So last Friday afternoon, I met with Tom Hopkins at the board in Boston and walked through the porch in some detail with him. And he agreed, after hearing complete discussion of all the complexities of the topography of the site, the various entry levels throughout the building, and talking through several of the alternatives of trying to make the porch accessible. He agreed that it was the cost was excessive and very minimal of any benefit in making it accessible. So he encouraged us to proceed with the porch. I even offered to potentially delete the porch if that was going to be a real stumbling block. He agreed, even though it's not his, outside of his area of expertise, he did agree that it was kind of a nice artificial feature and that we should not eliminate it, but we should proceed. But he did ask us to, for the formality of it, file for an appeal, which he thought they would hear administratively without a hearing and grant. So we're going to file that application just to make it official that it's been waived. The other 2 issues that were asked to kind of address for this next hearing was to prepare a kind of daily traffic parking plan to show how traffic moves on the site, and also show an event parking plan. Those have both been produced, and I'm going to share those with you now.
Could you turn that a little bit?
Closer to you.
No. Oops.
That's right.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Can you get that on the camera?
It was better before, but if that's better for you, it can make
Thank
it
you.
So, I don't know if anybody else can see this, but I'm going to go to the first plan, which is the daily parking traffic plan. Of course, because as a matter of fact, none of the traffic and parking issues that are on campus now are related to the applications before you, but the school's made a good faith effort to kind of document this and also try to improve them. And this first plan shows the daily drop-off and queuing for pickup and drop-off, which is the most active time of day for the school. The 3 separate drop-off areas is one at the middle school, there's one at the Tyler House, and there's one at the main building. I'm sorry, I don't see this. And this shows the cars, how they stack up. There's a stacking lane along this portion of Watch Hill Drive that allows cars to get out of traffic going up and down Watch Hill Drive. So all the stacking and queuing occurs in this area. I've also highlighted the property across the way, which is Sunflower Hill, so-called. That is a school-owned parcel they use for parking. You'll see it on the special events plan, but also it's been used most recently as parking for faculty and staff to alleviate congestion in existing parking lots. And on this plan that was submitted to you, there's also a list of the parking procedures that they have been using and enforcing very rigorously over the past several weeks. And I think even the opponents of this application would agree that there really have been no traffic and parking issues during that time. This plan also shows or indicate a number of proposed signage on the site. They have some temporary paper signage up right now that's kind of enforcing essentially this plan as you see it at the moment. And so they propose to have no parking signs on the far side of Watch Hill Drive all the way up, and actually even along this frontage here of the school property. They propose just beyond the entrance to this 2-car accessible parking space lot that we're putting in here to put in a resident parking only stripe on the street, so indicating there's no parking or traffic beyond that location. School's also putting a no right-hand turn sign at the exit to the main lot, discouraging them from even thinking about turning up the hill into that area. Those will be in place. And I think that you'll find that there's really no need to park along that portion of Watch Hill Drive on a day-to-day basis. The second plan, if there's no questions about this one.
Just, can you, the traffic, so the queuing lines are in between the loops.
Right,
So they
into
come
the site.
through and then they actually, do they come out and take a left out of each one of those
That's
to
right.
get out?
Unless it's a parent that maybe has children in more than one
Right,
building.
but it's normally left and back out.
Right, otherwise, they would come and turn left and exit. Turn left and exit, but there are, a certain number of parents who probably have students in, multiple
Okay.
buildings, so they might go through more than one drop-off.
How long does
So
the
the-
whole process, excuse me,
Go ahead.
how long does the whole process take?
Today I was told there's an early dismissal where which is a fairly rare occurrence where all the students are dismissed at exactly the same time. I think I was told it took about 12 minutes to originally.
Drop-off is between 8:10 and 8:30 in the morning, so it's 20 minutes for drop-off.
And then leaving the pickup is the same time frame?
Well, it's different dependent upon the time of year because of the flexible schedules of the different classes and levels. Today happens to be one of the days, I'm Davenport Crocker, I'm on the board of trustees of Inley School. So today happens to be one of the days, there are 2 days each year, the day before Christmas vacation and the day that's the end of school, when the entire school is dismissed at 11:30. That creates the most pickup traffic. And the time frame today was sort of the rush started, and about 12 minutes later, it had subsided.
And there's no traveling as people are dropping off, there's no traveling up through the neighborhood, through the cul-de-sac, that kind of
No.
thing? Okay.
The second plan I'm going to show you is the event parking plan. There are several occasions over the course of the year, including at the end of the school year, where there are special events that require more parking on the site than is normally available. So I want to point out, in addition to the already lots that are in place and striped as such, the fact that they would use the lawn in front of the middle school for parking on the lawn for special events. It holds about 30 spaces. You can also take advantage of the stacking lane along the Watch Hill Drive here to park additional cars along the street. Also in the lawn in front of the middle school drop-off area, and also in front of the toddler house as well. And then importantly, the Sunflower Hill site, which is a building that probably did not exist when they originally built the art barn. Actually, it has quite a bit of parking capacity. We're showing 57 event parking spaces on that site. That's probably conservative by my estimate. They can get quite a few cars in that area. And there's a walking trail that takes you from that lot across the street to the school. Now, this would probably be the case certainly throughout, I think, most special events. And the school does not presently see a need to park along Watch Hill Drive for special events beyond this main parking lot. But I do want to point out that the school is reserving the right to park along their frontage along Watch Hill Drive in the future, if need be. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. The signs that I just indicated a moment ago will be in place to discourage that, but it's, I think in all honesty, to make certain that you understand that that's something that they may like to do in the future.
And why is that?
I'm going to let Susan, who's the school's attorney, kind of speak to that question about why we describe it as such.
My name is Susan Murphy. I'm with the firm of Dane Torby in Boston, and I'm counsel to Inley. This is a private way, and the owners on the way have the rights with respect to their frontage on the way. So the school is willing to sign it and enforce it, and I think that at least what I've heard, and I believe what the evidence has shown is that even in the last couple of weeks since they've been doing this, they can do it. And I believe I heard at the event today there was no parking even without official signs up there, up the hill. But to the extent that they have rights in Watch Hill Drive and to park in Watch Hill Drive, they have no intention of using it, but that does not mean that some point in the future they won't. And so we discussed this at great length, back and forth, show them on the plan, not show them on the plan. And they felt, for full disclosure, they did not want to create a situation where the impression was given that they have given up those rights forever. So the plan, I believe on the plan you have in front of you, they're a different color because there are no parking signs that are going to be installed, and they intend to enforce those with the parents. So this is not it's going to happen next week, it's going to happen next year. It may happen in the future, and they just felt it was important to be honest about it. And that's 11 parking spaces. They came in with an 11-space lot and were asked not to build it. So it becomes a question of, if they need 11 spaces in the future, do they build a parking lot that's there 365 days a year, or do they 10 times a year have a few cars on the street? And you know, that's kind of a trade-off that's going to have to get sorted out in the future, but in the interest of full disclosure, we wanted to at least show you that it's possible, but that's why it's a different color, and that's why there are still no parking signs shown.
So to verify, there are, like you said, they were in red there, I believe. From the, just past the entrance, there's those 11 right there, is that what you're saying?
Spaces right here. There's also 3 right here in front of that. Also labeled as future parking.
And those are parking spaces that you're reserving your rights to use at any time, not just special.
This is a special event plan. Those are not.
I understand that.
Those are not shown on the prior
I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just something you're sort of reserving for special events, if you will. In other words, we won't find people parked there on a daily basis as they go through the drop-offs and pickups and all that.
Right, and they're not shown on the drop-off pickup plan because
Right, no.
the intention is to enforce that as they've started doing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
parse what you
Yeah.
were saying here.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you, on the, I think if you said on the previous plan, you're using this, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the little Sunflower Hill parcel, as typical, as parking right now. So is that sort of built into your overall available parking on a daily basis, those numbers? Those, I don't know, it was 50, 70,
The application you have before you, no, it's not part of those numbers.
Okay.
Because it's not really a striped, regulation parking lot as such. But there is a large lawn area there with a big driveway that turns around and actually can accommodate quite a few cars. It gets used on a regular basis for staff and event parking.
And how many would you say that is?
I said, I think it's 57 on that. 57 additional spaces over in that area.
Okay.
So what's for the event plan, what is the total number of spaces?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. Let me summarize that. So what we're showing to you right here shows a total of 208 parking spaces on campus. And I believe there is also the option of hiring a valet, which they've done on occasion, to actually increase the parking by parking in the aisles of the parking lots for very large special events. And they have calculated they can get an additional 28 spaces if need be, using that kind of methodology. Also, we'll note that for special events, the school routinely hires traffic cop details to help enforce and control the traffic and parking.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Well said on that.
Were those, is that the end of your?
Those are the 3 things you asked us to kind of address.
Okay.
That's my summary. I'm sure you have any questions on this.
No, I'm going to turn it over to Laura for the moment.
I had a question just maybe on maybe not for Mr. Peterman, but just in general, like the summary of the discussions between the neighbors and the school? Because I think you met, was it several times? Was it once? Okay.
Yeah, I was...
You were going to do that? Okay,
Yeah, I was
perfect
gonna do
segue.
that. Okay, I can do that. There was a meeting, it was on Tuesday, I believe, was it June 8th? And there was a good group of people from the neighborhood. I don't think that any agreement was really reached at that meeting. The school has had its position, the neighbors had their position. And then we did go outside and look at, different locations where the mailbox used to be, which the neighbors had considered that was the upper boundary of where, the parking had been agreed to go. And I believe that was right in the neighborhood of the crosswalk to the Sunflower Hill. And, with the site visit, things seemed a little more, like people were in a little more agreement, but it was all very informal how these things were going to be agreed. And, I think the school's position was still that they were not necessarily going to be bound by any agreement, that they would do things kind of to be nice guys, but that, that could change if it had to change. So that was the meeting with the neighbors. Then I think there were a couple of other pieces to report to the board. First of all, I think I'm going to go over some of the points raised by town council. We didn't hear from them until yesterday. And actually, I'm sorry, we didn't hear from them until today. I had a conversation with them yesterday, but then we had a longer conversation today, and we did get a letter from them today. And I'm just going to go through, I've kind of tried to highlight a few things in the letter that they wrote, which of course is public record, and anybody who wants to can have a copy of it. But one thing that was very interesting was that town council found that the old conditions that the planning board had imposed were actually continuing in effect. They were valid because they had never been appealed. So there's no reason to consider that those are not valid. They also felt that the planning board did have the right under the Dover Amendment to regulate parking, and that it could be parking on and around the site. It didn't have to be strictly the parking on the site itself, but the parking, in the neighborhood of the site could also be regulated. The amount of parking that's required shouldn't be overly burdensome to the school. It shouldn't interfere with their ability to carry on the educational use of the school. But that's something that if the planning board wants a certain number of spaces, the responsibility is on the school to show why that number is burdensome or, is burdensome. So that was interesting. And then there were a couple of other items, for instance, that the planning board had wanted the information about student enrollment, and that's something that I think we've all heard is not something that is any business of the planning board, but town council disagreed with that. They said that the planning board could certainly request information about student enrollment because it's related to the sufficiency and the use of the parking on the campus. So those were some of the things that they said. Just want to see, I had a couple of notes also. Anyhow, I think that was the gist of what they said. The other piece of information, which I've, reported and shown pictures and so on, is that on an average day up there, judging by, the couple of days I was up there, there were cars parked on the grass, and there weren't just one or two, there were like 8 or 10 of them. And, you have to wonder in the winter, I mean, it looks fine now, looks like, okay, just, another place to park that's a little bit, different, but it's, okay. But you have to think about the winter and, what's going to happen as far as people being able to get to and from the school. When you go up on Sunflower Hill, there were maybe a half dozen cars parked on the grass up there, and they were parked in pretty tight. It's a narrow driveway. I mean, if there's a statement that's being made that you can fit 57 cars up there, I mean, I think you'd really have to have a traffic engineer show you how those cars can actually get in and out without like scraping the paint of, the car next to you. It just looks, it looks so tight on the plan that it's hard to conceive that could actually, that could actually be done. So I guess we bounced around a few possible motions. One idea was to approve the plan and ask for additional parking to be added. There were a couple of other thoughts. But, really looking at where things are with the plan, I think you'd want to see where that parking is going to be located. Should they go back to the 11-car lot? Should they, put them in, in the lot off 123? And I think they're probably going to say, well, it's really not fair to bring parking up now because they did show the lot with the 11 spaces. And they did, but at that time, I think the planning board was given the impression that there was no parking problem up there at all. And I think between the input from the neighbors and seeing what's up there for parking and how it's being used, I think I'd be hard-pressed to say that there isn't a parking problem. But that's just my opinion. And I know some of you may have gone up there as well, and I don't know, what you saw going up there.
Okay.
Could I respond to
Sure.
those items? Thanks. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see a letter from council. I think Rob did offer on my behalf that I'd be happy to talk to council. I was interested in council's opinion, but I was not provided with the letter before tonight, so I don't have a chance to really, I don't know what it says in detail. I will say, just whenever we start talking about student enrollment, we do take exception to that since the zoning bylaw bases parking on square footage, not on enrollment. So to say you need enrollment in order to determine parking when that is not your own zoning provision, I do not believe is consistent either with your own zoning or with the Dover Amendment. And I guess if you want to know what the student is today in connection with this project, that's appropriate, but to say that you have to be informed forever into the future would not be appropriate because it goes to the use and enrollment, which is not even a factor in your parking table. So that's just my initial reaction to council. But the other thing is I went back, and I know I wasn't at the prior hearings, but I went back and I couldn't find the April 30th meeting. I don't know why on the internet, but I did go back and watch the entire May 14th meeting. And Mr. Peterman wasn't here, but there was another architect here who said, we know that more parking spaces are needed, but the neighbors don't want us to build it. And then Mr. DeMarco got up and said, we know that we may need on paper a couple hundred spaces, but the neighbors don't want us to build it. So Inley has never...
52%. 52.
No, 52 for this project, but I'm saying for the entire, for this new project, for the entire site. So I just don't, it's not accurate, so I think it's unfair to say that Inley ever claimed that there was not a parking issue. They've always acknowledged that the paved parking on the site does not match with ideally every car that would come for a special event. But I guess the trade-off is, and this is, I think, part of the reason I'm here, is on the one hand, I think legitimately, Ms. Harbottle is saying there really should be more parking lots, parking spaces on the site. And the neighbors are upset because 2 parking spaces are being added. So where do we end up? And so, kind of that's where we are. And so I just wanted to make those clarifications.
Okay, thank you. If I could, let's hold off on the board for a minute, and I'd like to get any other public comments at this point in time.
Hi, good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Kazinovich. I'm counsel representing the neighborhood.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could we have him sit there so that
Sure.
TV can hear him? Thank you.
I do want to bring several concerns to the board's attention right now. But before I do that, the neighborhood generally supports the construction project and the school's work. It's really the parking issue that has divided the sides, not the project itself. And we want to see them succeed. I also want to say that the impression in the neighborhood for the past 2 weeks of traffic, parking, and traffic flow is that it has improved immensely, which tells us that Inley knows how to control traffic if it wants to. And frankly, we wish it had been doing this for all these years, and there would have been less emotion concerning the issues. However, that gets to my first concern now. We're not sure we have enough understanding or documentation of how Inley is going to continue to control traffic and their agreement to do so. Right now, it's a whole lot of trust, and given some of the history, my clients are concerned about not having something enforceable. And I think it was best summed up by Ms. Harbottle when she summarized the meetings, that everyone had their positions, there were some kind of coming together, but it was still vague. And right now, we're feeling it is way too vague. Second thing, we agree with town council that the 2001 conditions are valid and were not appealed. We do think that we should live by them, because otherwise, every time a project comes in for approval, then years down the road, someone repudiates an earlier condition, so you don't have a chance to be exercising your proper oversight. It becomes, really, it evades the process. So we think they should be enforced. There should be no parking above the location or the old location of the mailbox. There should be no designation or future reservation of the 11 spots, and no designation of that upper field for potential overflow parking. I also want to make a point of, again, how Inley is not addressing both sides and both sets of rights equally. They want to park 11, or have reserved 11 spaces on the Inley frontage side of Watch Hill. That denies my clients on the other side their right to have their friends park in front of their house. Because if you get two cars parked, especially in the winter with snow, you have a passage problem. The roadway's not right. So it's not only Inley who has frontage rights, It's my clients who have equal frontage rights, which get defeated if in any way those 11 spots are planned on for project purposes. Frankly, in most private ways, people park where it's convenient for them. You know, you have guests, you have visitors, and if a visitor parks in front of a neighbor's house as opposed to your house, it happens. But I think we have to be very sensitive to rights of passage and rights of parking for all of the parties there. We are concerned with screening and whether we would get a commitment for lasting screening and preserving existing screening. We did notice, I noticed a new problem. There's a lot of young drivers in the neighborhood now. It's right, the subdivision's at the age where people are learning to drive. Screening helps, not looking at athletic fields, anything like that. So we would love a commitment for permanent screening. But some of these things, if it's prospective and in the future, that should be a different site plan in front of this board. I think this board should look at the project, not overrule the 2001 conditions, and finally, I think it should get sufficient traffic engineers and traffic studies. In my letter to the board from June 8th, I said, there's a parking problem. I think this is an opportunity to get appropriate expertise. It's not just a traffic person and not just a parking person, but both, to truly look at the overall site and see what's in the best interest of the town and safety. And clearly the board has jurisdiction, even with the Dover Amendment, because this is getting down to fundamental passage and cars being able to drive safely. There's a number of minor issues going on that the neighbors feel that they don't need to bring up in front of the board, are more in the nature of minor changes just to talk about with this. But with that, we ask that you consider our position when you take your vote.
Thank you. Any other comments from public? Okay.
I guess I'd like to make a comment.
Could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Jack D'Ambrosia.
I think that generally happens.
19-year resident.
This does not.
I think we're not here to stop the project and looking to stick by those 2001 conditions, but at the same time we're very willing, and we've had some good dialogue very recently about working through some of these problems on our own outside of this forum. So the only thing we're really asking for is not put anything in place that would immediately sort of supersede or lay on top of, take away the 2001 conditions.
Thank you. Yes.
The only comment that I'd like to make is on the screening issue. The plan shows screening. There's an intention to put in screening. As we all know, trees of that type are not inexpensive. So there's not an intent to put in trees and then the next week rip them out. The trees are going to be there as long as it's feasible to maintain them and as long as they don't interfere with whatever the future plans are with the school. But I don't, Ms. Harbaugh didn't say whether town council spoke to screening, but I do not believe there is a category under Dover in which screening comes in. And as Mr. D'Ambrosia mentioned, in the same way that they hope to work together, and I believe both sides do, on a number of issues, this needs to fall in that category. I do not believe that you can appropriately require permanent screening under the Dover Amendment.
So, just so I'm clear, was there screening addressed in the 2001 special permit?
Yeah.
Not in this location. I mean,
No,
we're not gonna,
I'm just asking.
it may have been, but we, not having reviewed town council's decision, we're not gonna speak to whether we agree or, will agree or disagree on conditions that were done 14 years ago, but they don't relate to this project. And I think in retrospect, there may have been things in Lee, if the same people were involved now would have challenged in 2001. We're talking about the application of the Dover Amendment, whether they were properly, those conditions were properly placed or not, and appealed or not, is not relevant. So we're just asking the board to do what's appropriate under the statute for this project.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm trying to reconcile is you agreed to do some of these things in the last approval. And,
Well, we're talking about this area in front of the Arts Barn, right?
I'm just talking about landscape screening, et cetera, okay? And I believe that was in the original Art Barn approval, and it still is, correct?
I think that there was a separate private agreement between the school and the neighbors that they may be referring to, but I have it here, I'm just
Okay,
trying to
maybe I missed it. Maybe
There
I
is a
didn't.
section on screening.
There was screening for the detention basin in particular.
Yes.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is currently, like, that plan's not accurate per se. I mean, there are trees along there right now.
That's correct, and we gave you an updated site survey that shows that there's trees all along this frontage here. There's only a couple gaps where there's there's a construction access to the field, and we're also adding screening, of course, along this entire frontage, in addition to the plants that are already there to screen the parking lot.
Right.
Can I just ask why those current trees or the existing trees weren't shown on that plan?
Only because they were on the survey that we were working with. You do have a copy of this now in your possession. That can be confirmed that was just done a few days ago. Surveyor came back out, identified the trees that are in place here. They're not in dispute, and there's no intention to take any of them out.
Okay, I'm just looking at, I don't mean to belabor this point, but there was a whole section addressing screening in that particular approval, including around the front of the building area and around the parking area, which
Right, that was
I'm
that
assuming you...
project at that time.
Okay.
This is not the screening we're talking about today.
I hear you. So what I'm saying is that in this particular approval, you agreed to do this, right?
In 2001, there was...
Correct. And
There were
there's...
conditions placed which they complied with. at the
Yes.
time, yes.
And you didn't choose to
Right, the
disagree with those at that point in time.
the school did not appeal
Right.
at that time.
Right. So I guess my point is, if there are things like screening that we would all like to address, and you were willing to address them, you could include them here, right? What you're telling me is you're not willing to
Well,
include them here.
yes, because...
You could volunteer to do that.
Yeah, however, once you put it in as a condition, as you're saying, if something happens, some trees die, or someday that 11-lot parking lot goes in and those trees have to come down or whatever, then the school is faced with either members of the board, the neighbor saying, no, there's a condition that you acquiesce to put those trees there, and 2 died and you didn't replace them, you're in violation of your permit. So since it is not something, since this is what it has now come to, now the school has to say, we need to fall back on what our rights are, because it's being now used as a hammer. Something they acquiesce to do, be a good neighbor, is now being used as a hammer. Instead of saying, we're trying to do the right things, we've been showing the trees on the plans all along, and yet, there's a lot of tension around that issue. So to voluntarily do something to be a good neighbor, but then have it be used against you in the future, doesn't make you so happy to acquiesce going forward.
Right, and I don't expect you to enter into these kind of voluntary agreements lightly, right? But I would expect once you entered into them, that you would abide by them. And, perhaps the issue here is that if you're not willing to include the screening now,
they're willing.
Because you don't want it to be held against you, I understand.
They're willing to put it in, that's the whole point, they're willing to put it in. They're not
Willing to commit to
comfortable
it.
with saying, there's a condition that the building commissioner can show up at their door because 3 trees died and the neighbor across the street said, I can see 6 inches of the arts barn, and I don't like it because the tree died. That's the situation that's not really tenable right now. So,
I hear you. Okay. Questions from the board?
Well, and I think maybe there's 2 different things in my mind with the screening. There's the proposed screening, and then there's the current screening that's there, right? And I don't know if we need to break that apart.
No, I think the point I was trying to make is that it can be addressed if the school is willing to make that commitment in the conditions. What I hear you saying is those are not commitments you're willing to make. You want to keep it strictly to what is said in the Dover Amendment.
I
And
guess I'm not hearing that. Like, what I'm hearing is that they're willing to do it, but they gotta be practical about the reality. If the tree dies, don't come back and avoid my permit.
Right.
I think that's what I'm hearing.
which would be fine, and we can write something in here about that, right? But-
Well, I was gonna say, there's a difference between for forever having this in perpetuity or doing it initially, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
That you could agree to a condition to do it initially, but not always have that in place, right?
Well, I don't know what the point would be, though. I mean, so you'd have like a tree for 5 years, and then if it died, you just forget about it?
Well, I'm trying to find a way to get to sort of best efforts here, right? And to say, are there things, I mean, it feels like it's not a commitment if you're not willing to write it down. And so I'm trying to find a way to get to the right spot.
No,
I think good middle ground would be that we would put it in at the outset of the project.
And try to keep it alive for a few years? A couple of years?
Well, you know,
typically, the nursery that installs them does warranty them, at least for the first year, growing season.
Yeah, so maybe it's a year.
So, Mr. Chairman, again, Davenport Crocker, from the Board of Trustees and in the school. So, I think it's important to know.
Not sure I can help you out.
We are not trying to appease the neighbors to get back to the relationship that they are frustrated with from the past. The reason we would put the trees in, the reason we would spend the money and invest this money, which is not come by easily, every dollar is very difficult for us to get to put into this project. The very premise is that the trees will be there. I think that if what you're referring to is that you'd like to have an agreement that we will follow through with the initial installation of the trees, I can assure you that that would be acceptable. Of course we're going to try to maintain the trees. What we just simply have to be very careful about is, and this is coming from our understanding as we listen to the rights, is that we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing by our community, by our neighbors. And I believe
But
that
these are
even
findings of
going
fact,
to the other
not
conditions that we've had the objections on
We
in
have
terms of
conditions?
traffic and parking, I think that we've already demonstrated that we will spend money, invest, and design and do whatever we need to do and be good neighbors. What we just need to be careful about is how we memorialize that. Ultimately, I think that what occurred was that somehow there's maybe something that wasn't done before. If the reality is that there can be an agreement and something isn't accomplished, then it always comes down to the people involved. It always comes down to, are we going to do the right thing? And I'm only one person, but I'm here on behalf of the school, and we know what we need to do. The neighbors are frustrated because they thought that they knew what we were going to do in the past. I can't undo that. I can only do what we're doing with this project going forward. I think what's been helpful for us as a school is that the neighbors raised their concerns. We did not, as a school, as a board, we did not know about those concerns until we brought this project in. And since we brought that in, we've addressed it. And so I want you to know that I understand exactly how you're trying to get the piece, but we're willing to commit to doing it. What I think we have to be very careful about is what are we committing to 10 and 12 and 15 years out when we don't know what's going to happen with those trees. I just don't. I can't.
I have a question. Where you have put together a draft approval, correct? That we have with conditions.
Yeah.
What number, or am I missing it?
Well, I did two motions.
We have too
So-
many drafts.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of drafts.
I'm looking at
Hang on.
one for June 11th, 2015.
Okay, well,
I'm
that should
looking at
be...
that too.
And I'm trying to figure out where in this is the talk about screening.
There isn't any because, you know, frankly, it didn't seem to be one of the interests of the Dover Amendment.
So I don't understand why we are going forward, you know, being upset about screening and trees and what have you, when it's not even in what we may or may not approve.
I think,
Well, you can
Ann,
always add
the
it.
reason it's not in there is the school has raised the issue that those kinds of issues cannot be addressed under the Dover Amendment. So that's the reason
All right.
there isn't right now
Okay.
a discussion about it. What I was trying to get to, is there a way to write something that provides some kind of standard or approach or commitment on the school's part to address some of the issues, and I think screening was one of the issues that the neighbors were concerned about. And they have committed on the plan to provide screening, right? So perhaps it's just this sort of lack of trust that has happened over time or whatever that you may not have been involved in, but it's a way of just, sort of making the commitment in black and white. And whether it has to be maintained in perpetuity and all those kinds of, I think there's probably a middle ground there, right? And
I think Susan's point about that it can't be used as a hammer, in Davenport's point that in good faith we will put it in at the outset of the project, are important points to us.
which I appreciate. The point I was trying to get to is something like that, something you're willing to put into writing? Or is it just a commitment you're going to make verbally here today?
I think we could work on drafting some words right now.
Okay. And I think that would address sort of some of those issues, right? And I think the other issue we have is really the parking issue, right?
Yeah,
So let's
before we
move on
start
to that.
drafting the screening, let's go back to the parking. Can you flip over and give me option 1, 2, or 3? I'm not sure that I really care which.
Yeah, within parking plan?
That's a pretty one.
That's a pretty one. Which one is that?
I think number 2 is best for you then, right?
Yes, that's right there.
Let me make an observation. Okay. If I were a neighbor, and they told me I was going to put 52 cars down in the bottom and 38 cars over on the hill, right, would it really matter to me if they put 52 instead of 58 as long as they parked the cars there? I tell you, I submit the answer is really no.
Are you saying the way it is now or creating a parking lot?
I'm 30,000 feet. I'm up here looking.
Oh.
I'm up here looking for an airport.
Okay. I'm sorry, then could you just repeat that again?
Okay. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're going up.
Okay.
Were I to be a neighbor, right, and you told me that I was going to put 52, or what did I say, 59 parking spaces in one location and 32 in another. Well, I don't care where they are.
Okay.
Right? I'm still 30,000 feet.
Okay.
I'm just looking at numbers. And if you came back and the reality was that I could only put 38 instead of 39, or I could only put 38 instead of 42, which I thought I could do, right? Does it really matter to me? And as a neighbor, I think the answer is no. Okay. What I would be concerned as of a neighbor is where I come back up and I see the junction where the school property goes up on the right, and the neighborhood goes up on the left. Right, I'm concerned about what's going to happen in that area. That's where I'm concerned about parking.
Where those 11 cars are being shown right now?
Well, I think that the point is made is you each have an opportunity to use that. It's a private way and you each got rights in a private way. Right, so the first one there parks his car, that's it. But I think what I'm looking at is, how do I come back up and ensure that, that I really don't need those particular parking spaces? Because I could tell you, I could ask you, as an applicant, on a special event, how many cars do I need? You'd be hard pressed to tell me. I think you'd be hard pressed to tell me. I think it would make a difference whether it was Christmas or Halloween. So I think that you're looking at a moving target in terms of how many of my parking spaces am I going to look for. But what I knew, though, when I get finished and I cut through the chase and I come back closer to going to land the plane in a minute, right? When it comes back out, whatever space is available, as long as you don't infringe upon my piece, that allows me, it prevents me from having access, that prevents me from having cars parked in my yard, which I don't particularly like. Right? So if I go from that junction up, once I come back up and reach that, and in fact, I don't care where or how you park the cars. Is that a simplistic place of talking about the neighborhood? Yeah. Okay, so the question is now, what problem am I going to solve? Am I trying to solve a problem where I'm going to put X number of cars, park X number of cars on this piece of property for a special event? And I don't even know how many there are. But I do know that if you run a special event and you can't park all of the parents' cars, you do it once, you get kind of talked back behind your back. The second time you get somebody in front of your board telling you that I got 3 kids in school and I'm paying $1 zillion and I want to be able to park my car and watch them do the show. That's going to get your attention. Right, so the question becomes is, how do I solve that problem? Now, what I understand is taking place is that you've got remedial steps, and granted, unfortunately, it's at the end of the year, as opposed to the middle or where I get a better sense of what's going to happen. Right, to say I'm going to look at it in the next couple of weeks is really isn't meaningful because
nobody's there. Right.
I got plenty of parking spaces. Right. So the question becomes is what steps were taken and how can I come back and ensure that those particular steps do prevent, come back up, parking in the neighborhood as well as doesn't preclude the access. So when they get all finished, I really don't care how many parking spaces you have, because if it doesn't work, you're the one's going to hear about it. If the number of parking spaces...
As long as it doesn't impact.
That's where I'm headed next. And if it comes back up and it drives them up into along the property, right, that's what I'm concerned about. That way that we hear about it.
One thing I'll just point out, if you're not aware of it already, is that when the school built the art barn, I think 9 years ago, did not own Sunflower Hill, did not own this middle school property that's along 123. And for some reason, I think we call it the number of event parking spaces that was thought to be required at the time was 100. And since they did not have that on the campus at the time, there was some sort of agreement there'd be some arrangement for off-site parking. Since that time, they have acquired both these properties. As you can see, that's where a substantial amount of event parking is located. And that's why, in fact, in excess of 200 spaces, that's why it hasn't really been an issue. It's really more of a policing issue to kind of keep cars off the street. They should have the capacity.
Well, I'm headed there in a minute. Now, if I have a police detail, or you hire police details, where do you put them?
So, just one point. So the council for the neighbors actually said over the last 2 weeks that this seemed to have been improved. I believe that we actually started this, putting our new plan in place as much as 4 weeks ago, because I think it was before the last time we were here. So just to share that this is not just a week or two, it's actually been more than that. Mm-hmm. We used to put detail down here, right? This is the entrance where a lot of people would come in to park and actually come up to events. So this is where we had the detail station. We subsequently have actually, as part of this modified plan, which we are still learning how to best manage, what we've done now is we actually have 2 people. We have a person here, and we're actually putting a person farther up. And this was actually in place today. Very busy day for parking for us. We had a person actually stationed at this corner. Physical person at that corner to remind people, after all the communication, signage and everything else, we still have had someone park their car right next to a no parking sign. I think that they would probably tell you that's happened. Don't know why, people can't understand what no parking means. But so when we're having events, we're now having 2 people. One is a detail, Scituate policeman. Mm-hmm. The other one is a staff member from the school. I believe tomorrow we will actually have detail as well as valets because it's graduation day. So we're in the process of understanding how to manage the flow and the traffic and the parking. What I know from our commitment as a board is that these spaces, and it's been said a couple of times, but just to reiterate, we did not put these spaces on here so that we can use them as part of our current planning process. What we want to make sure of, though, is that based upon some of the communication we've had with the neighbors since this project has come forward, it felt like us on our board, there have been maybe some agreements in the past that hadn't been fully understood. And so we wanted to make crystal clear that while this is not part of our current process plan, we did not want to confuse the neighbors and have them think that we've acquiesced and given up that right. I believe that what we're saying is we have the same right that I think a couple of you referenced, which is that that's a place that people could park. But it is not part of what our intended plan for our school is. And I think that actually the thing that will still need to be determined by us is during the course of the school year, there are a couple of items that we can identify and say, those are special events. I think what we've actually taken note of is that some of the not special events create parking problems. So it's not just as simple as saying we need to have this in place 3 or 4 times a year. We have to actually figure out as we go through our calendar, what are the things that trigger parking challenges? And so that's what we're doing.
If you come back up and you pick up or your delivery is 20 minutes a day, that's fair? 20 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you came back up and you put someone right at the apex at that point, and sit there and said, you go out there and stand there for 20 minutes and just don't let any cars go by, right? Then that would solve that problem of putting cars either parking there, right? Because if they were there before the students arrived, then you got a pretty good handle on which one of your faculty owns that car.
I believe that actually since we put
makes sense to me.
Yes, and since we put the process in place, I don't think we still have people making that right-hand turn and trying to go up the hill. I don't believe we have people trying to bypass the drop-off and go up the hill directly, which we used to have.
If I could just mention that the gentleman you're talking about is actually labeled on the plan. It's on the drop-off and pickup plan. We have a drop-off and pickup time attendant on the plan.
I'm more interested in boots on the ground.
And I think what I heard from the neighbors and your representative was that this has gotten much better in the last 2 weeks. That you're sort of, you agree that they've been able to sort of address this, at least in the last 2 weeks. Is that right?
Davenport's right even more than the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think you got a solution on how to solve the problem. The question is, how do you convince your neighbors that you're going to do it?
I think the last 4 weeks.
I think it's critical to you now, but we'd like to believe that it's going to continue after this.
To answer Bill's question, we started with...
Not that I'm being nosy, but we need to know who you are.
Sorry, Sue Campbell.
Okay.
Just to answer Bill's question, we started with good faith, put the practice in place to test this on our community, and the tests have gone well, and we're presenting this plan to the board tonight because we intend to follow.
And I guess where you each have rights in the road, I'm not sure that your rights in maintaining your ability to park your cars on those 11 spots or 12 spots, right, it should be part of any parking plan that you have.
Right, and I don't think that that's what they're asking, because clearly the plan, there wouldn't be 12 cars going in there and sitting there all day, every day, 365 days a year. It's saying, if some point in the future those signs come down and sometimes people are parked there, as you said, it's no different, or as the Abutters Council said, it's no different if those homeowners across the street had some friends over and they parked on their side. No one's asking them to say, you can't have your friends park on the street. So Inley's saying, should we have to say, we won't park our friends, our family on the street when you're not being...
You've got the rights,
right?
you've got the rights in the private road whether you mark those spots or not. I'm not suggesting that you don't mark them.
Bill, the reason why we mark them is we have a fear that someday, if we ever had to park there, which is not our intention or envision to exercise our rights, but we were afraid that the plan would be used as a hammer against us to say, look, here's your parking plan, you don't show any cars there. And we gave a lot of thought to this, and we said, let's show them as another color. So if someday someone tries to drop that hammer on us, they can't say, well, you showed us a parking plan that didn't have any cars there. That's the only reason why they're there, is to show, is so that someday we can't be accused of not keeping our promises.
I understand. I think it's a moot point. I mean, you've got rights in a private way regardless.
I mean, if you wanted to add that as language in the plan, that we have those rights, I think we could remove the spaces. You know, we could remove the graphic spaces, but the language has to be there that protects our rights.
I mean, you have that condition that says, you know, the queuing shall be in this area. I mean, as, you know, as long as you're saying, you know, that, as long as everyone's agreeing that that's not forfeiting whatever other rights they do have, that's their concern. Is that being read to say they've forfeited other rights they have? And you know,
But it is in the intent that those parking spaces, if they're used, are occasional uses. They're not
I know there
intended.
should be no parking signs there.
Right. I mean,
So to
that's,
clarify, they're only on the event plan, and the event is on occasion. So by definition, the plan sets up to what you're saying.
Mr. Chairman, I think that those 11 spaces were probably, the rights to them were probably given up by the 2001 condition, which said no parking.
No, it doesn't say that. The condition, I have the condition right here, it does not say no parking. It doesn't mention that at all. It says where parking shall be, it doesn't say where parking shall not be.
It's inartfully worded.
No, well, if you want to enforce it, then we're going to enforce what it says.
And this is why we want to be clear,
It says,
we don't have ambiguous language.
it doesn't say shall not, it says shall. And so it designates specific areas without prohibiting other areas.
Okay, so let me ask a question to the neighborhood. If you had someone that was there that precluded cars from going up, whether it was a special event or whether it was a day-to-day operation, would that solve the problem? Or what else would you need to solve the problem of coming back up and having either parking or egress on your way?
Chris Campbell, 100 Washington Rock, I guess. Question before I get to that answer. Is there a stipulation in the plan that now allows parking in athletic?
I didn't hear the question.
Is there a stipulation?
Parking in athletic? I thought there, at least on the copy I got the other day, that they had verbiage, you know. Allowance for parking in the athletic field. On the event part.
There's never been parking on the athletic field shown or contemplated. You know, this all begs the question, if the town came back, I don't know, at some future point, if there was another project and said, you need another parking lot, this is the land they own. So if they need a parking lot, it could be there. It could be on Sunflower Hill. It could, I mean, there is no parking shown on any plans that have been presented to the town. And as far as I know, it's never been used for parking. Is that right?
It was used for
one time? Yes.
But I thought, at least on the plan I received yesterday, there was verbiage that stated, athletic field could be used for parking for events that were over like 100 people.
Yeah.
So I guess one of my questions would be, what is the intent of that word?
It's always been on there. It's a note.
I think generally, they have done a very good job in the last month with controlling it, so it becomes having the trust, building the trust together and working together to enforce that over time. As mentioned, we're not trying to stop the project. The spots that are marked as potential future spots, I think our preference would be to strike them from the plan and then have constructive dialogue going forward. If the school feels that there is a need to have on-street parking in certain situations, happy to have that dialogue. I just don't feel that the dialogue we've had over the last, the last board meeting, the meeting we had on site, I thought was kind of a waste of time. There were representatives that had no knowledge of the 2001 commitment, which is very important to us at that meeting. So
I think the key is to just separate that discussion from maybe this plan, remove the spots that are entitled potential future use, and then work together going forward. If the school feels those are impacting the education or whatever, impacting the school, happy to have that.
Mr. Chairman, we are willing to strike the words on the plan, athletic field?
Yeah, so there is a note, which I guess we were so focused on the picture, we hadn't gone back and looked at the notes since the original plans. So there is a note that says, with at events for over 100 people, we will open parking on Sunflower Hill, the middle school lawn, or the athletic field. And the school is willing to strike the words athletic field, so that if at some point in the future, that's something that's related to parking demands at the school, and they're back in front of you for another reason, then that can be addressed at that point. However, I think to put no parking signs on a plan with a permit that says you have to do the project in accordance with the plan, and not show that there's a potential for that, is giving up their rights. And so that's why.
What if we did as you suggested, which would be to remove those and put some acknowledgement that those spaces were still, rights that belong to the school, but that to exercise those, you would, it seems like there needs to be, if you plan to use those on a permanent basis or something like that, there needs to be a conversation with the neighbors about it.
I think,
and maybe
going forward, I think that, as Chris has pointed out, that both sides want to communicate better, and I think that's just part of being neighbors. I think that if you guys aren't trying to take our rights away, whether you want to show them graphically or in language, we're perfectly comfortable with that.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of the condition, like you said, remove the spaces or the red cars on the plan, but you could even have a condition saying, by right, this is a private way, and you have rights to park on a private way, something like that. So it's...
Excuse me, one of the things that town council brought up was that some of this dispute involves the property rights of different people that have nothing to do with what the planning board's jurisdiction is. So to start talking about who has the rights to park where is really something that I think he would say just don't go there, because you're kind of inserting yourself in the middle of basically a property dispute that has really nothing to do with what we all do here. So that's one angle of it. Another angle of it is what's happening really as far as traffic safety, the number of vehicles that you can potentially have. When you look at Watch Hill Drive, I think you have to think about the size of the road. If you've got the 11 cars there, not everyone's going to be coming and going at the same time. Where a pedestrian's going to be, where the kid's going to be, just making sure that everyone is really safe. And furthermore, that there's emergency access up there. So I think, for instance, having cars parking on both sides of the road at one time would be, particularly in the winter, would be, kind of maybe a really unsafe situation. The other thing I just want to say is I'm hearing a lot of talk about, it's kind of, sweetness and light and motherhood and apple pie and how nice it is, and why can't everybody just get along? And I certainly feel that way myself. But when you really think about the potential for things to change and things to be misinterpreted, I think it's really important to get whatever you believe is the right thing down on paper, because then everyone has a record of it.
I just want to, sorry, I'm Jesse Napoli, actually the immediate adjacent neighbor to Sunflower Hill. And so you asked the question, would it suffice to have a traffic, guard at the top of the turn onto the Watch Hill Drive towards the residential area? And the answer is clearly yes. So it is true that I would say the morning after the last meeting that we had, there's been really very good control of keeping cars from parking up in that area. And so it just proves that, if you focus on something, you can actually accomplish it, right? It really doesn't take a whole lot to keep cars from making that turn. Just putting, as you had suggested, just putting someone there at the right time of the day, in the morning and the afternoon, to turn them around will suffice. In fact, to the point where it's probably not even going to be necessary to have all of these no parking signs every 20 feet along the area. If no one actually makes the turn, then they would never see it. So, it's quite possible, if this can continue, the management of the traffic to make sure the cars are just going to turn back around after the drop-off, that solves an awful lot.
But I also think that people are trainable enough that if you come back and you tell them 3 days in a row that you can't go up here, the fourth day they probably figure it out. So let me pick up and ask a question on screening too. We were talking about, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You have some comments.
You got the floor, and then we'll go back.
I'd like to make a comment as well.
97 Watch Hill Road Drive. I want to come back to something Mr. Taylor said and follow up on something Ms. Harbottle just said. It's more of a clarification and a question, and I don't know what documents you would approve if as submitted. 5-6 weeks ago when we were here, it was pointed out very clearly on the existing screening that it was missing from the architect's drawing. 5-6 weeks later, it's still missing. And to eliminate ambiguity about that, my understanding, you addressed it by saying today we found out there was an engineer who saw trees.
They're surveyed and they're on.
Just to be clear, we paid an engineer. Okay, so every time we change the plan, is when did the trees appear on the drawing before it is submitted, or is it submitted as is with a caveat? The existing screening is a very important issue. None of us bought the property wanting to overlook a potential parking lot. Not that there's one there now, but there could be one in the future. So it's a real point of clarity. When is it necessary to show the existing screening before you go ahead and review?
It's on the plan.
It's on the plan.
It's there, right. It's there tonight.
Not on these colored,
It's not here.
colored plans, but it's on the third or fourth sheet that
It's on the next iteration,
I was
right?
able to see it, and then he explained that it just showed up today with an engineer.
Well, those color plans are only to show parking and drop-off pickup. They are not the site plan
Right.
that we're asking you to approve. The site plan we're asking you to approve shows all the existing screening that has been submitted tonight.
All right, thank you. That's all the
Okay.
clarification. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Right, is that right? Am I- is that
The question I have is,
Let's go back to Bill.
where's the screening needed?
Where it's being
Oh, it
requested,
exists.
it exists. What they're requesting, and what Inley is already showing, is screening near the Arts Barn and where the 2 handicap parking spaces would go in. There's some trees there now, and it's being shown to be beefed up.
Right.
That's what's
And the
proposed.
rest of the existing trees are now shown on the drawing.
Yes, yes. So the existing conditions are now on the drawing, and proposed beefing up of more near where those 2 handicap spaces are going is proposed.
So let me ask the question to the other lawyer in the room. Where do you think the screening needs to be? Now, show me.
It really is right near the 2 handicap spots where it's beefed up and around the Arts Barn. But also, I was raising the issue, which may have been kind of mooted, when they had the athletic field as potential for parking. I saw that as of time to get a commitment to keep the screening that already exists around the athletic field tied into
But we've
parking.
taken the athletic field note off. We've
Right,
agreed
so-
to take it off the note so that any final plans that get submitted after tonight would have that note changed.
Right, so
to
that's a
remove
private
reference to the
discussion.
athletic field.
Bill, just as a point of how we've gotten to where we are, at our first meeting with our first plan, we had landscaping in that area, and we took comments from the board and the neighbors, and we amended that screening, so it's been commented on, and we have added screening.
So the fact of the matter is the drawing shows what we think needs to be done. The only conversation we were having is we should somehow memorialize that you're going to do that in any condition.
We can put language together tonight.
Initial installation, something to the effect of the initial installation as shown on the plan. It was the language that talked about having this many arborvitaes and this rhododendron, and I mean, it was getting very too specific and too has to be maintained type of
So it
language.
sounds like we're going to find a way to get
Yes,
that.
we're
So let
gonna
me turn it over to Ann, because she's been waiting patiently to ask some questions.
First, I will commend you for following the lead of the planning board and talking with the neighbors. I think that was tremendously important, and thank you very much. The question I have for you is, as long as you're going to maintain the parking system that you've come up with that obviously is working for the neighbors and for your people, how many events, how many special events do you generally have in the course of the year? 4 or more?
Julie reported that to me the other day. She said, I was told 10, 6 in the daytime and 4 at night for large events.
Okay. Aside from, the parking issues and all the rest of it, I think that the communication has to continue, and that when you are planning an event, that a note, a postcard, a telephone call, whatever, an email, hate email, that you contact all of the neighbors in good faith and tell them, we are planning a whatever on thus and such a time.
We have an events calendar on our website, so it's public information.
I understand it's...
You would be willing to send an email?
Send an email. You have all of their email addresses, or hopefully you do.
It seems like a lot.
Well, and can I just, sorry, I don't know what I'm supposed to... The 10 that is referred to are specific large events. I think as I was standing up here, I mentioned to you, it doesn't take a large event. Under our old operating procedure, it did not take a large event to cause a problem that the neighborhood found to be quite objectionable. We are still in the process of understanding what triggers those, but we believe that the solutions we have in place, and I think that the neighbors could speak to this as well, when you now come to the school during a normal day, there is parking available, and that is because we're making sure that the parking is in place at the school. Faculty and staff are parking in the other locations. So we're trying to address that, but I would not want you to be misled, and I would not want to mislead the neighbors. We don't think that this is a 10-time-a-year thing we need to address. We're addressing parking on an everyday basis.
I understand that, but I think that there should be some notification, or what you can do, it's on the calendar. You're absolutely correct, it's on the calendar. In September, mail one to each one of them, and you're done. So that they have on their calendars that they know that there's going to be cars up the kazoo, and they can deal with it.
It's just part of that communication that you're encouraging.
Right.
It's a suggestion, recommendation that she's making.
It's certainly not something I would consider as a condition.
It's not a condition.
It's not a condition, but it wouldn't hurt in September to send a copy to every neighbor. I think it's good faith.
Also, in reference to, it's a private road and they can park, they have right of way, we do too. So if I'm having a party Saturday night, they're having an event Saturday night. I don't know, they don't know. People are parked and now no one can pass.
Right.
So it is appropriate. And I am going to belabor this point, but the signage that we had discussed, that would be discussed with the neighbors, I think that really you guys have to discuss it with us, because it seems to me now there's going to be signage, ding, 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 all the way up. And you know what? If it was your house, you wouldn't want to see all these no parking signs either. There was, or in the middle of the street in front of my house saying, do not park, welcome to Brooklyn. It's not appropriate. So if there is a sign, or, you have to put some signage, just so that we know. And I don't think, once you say no parking, you have to say no parking. No, I really mean it. Just go back. No parking.
I just would like to address, so we felt after the initial contact and understanding of the issue, we felt this was a zero sum. We had to stop the parking.
Yeah.
Right? So.
But I'm just saying for the permanent parking signage that you're discussing.
I don't think that we have a, we're not having a problem with, if you want fewer signs.
If the neighbors want to request that we don't put the signs on the plan, and the signs are there to memorialize the school's commitment. And as you guys want to soften that.
Well, just to discuss it.
Certainly, we'll certainly discuss it, but we're here to move forward tonight. And, there's a lot of two-way street here. If we're having a party, we'll tell you. If you're having a party, you tell us.
But it just, for safety reasons.
I'm not even kidding around. Communication is a two-way street. It takes effort on both sides. And, we want to listen, we have worked hard and we have spent a lot of time, energy, and money putting these plans together. And we were told in open forum that they wanted the signs. Now they want to take them off. We'll do what you want, but we would like to keep
Well, and I mean, I do think that even for the neighbors, as I'm looking at this plan, it's having no parking signs on both sides of the street and around the cul-de-sac. If I live at the top of the cul-de-sac, I don't know, someone here, or I live over here and I'm having a party, what are my guests doing if there are no I mean, so again, I guess this kind of comes to why part of the reason they called me is how do we try to come up with an in-between reasonable staff. If they don't put the signs there, yes, they'll have a person there when it's the most peak times. But if the signs aren't there, and I don't know, some of the kindergarten parents all show up at 10 o'clock in the morning because they're having, I don't know, Thanksgiving, and now they park up there, there's no sign. So there's no...
Let me just say, right now, Mr. Chairman, the signs are on the plan and the attendant is on the plan. If you would like to request that we take something off the plan to put the plan to bed, please do so. I believe we could accommodate.
I'd leave it on the plan.
Yeah, I think we'll try to stick with the plan. If, as you go along, you jointly want to agree to remove no parking signs, it sounds like the most important thing is preventing people from driving up.
So let me just ask a question with respect to that. So if you have a condition, which the draft said, that says you're going to build it in accordance with the plan, and then they mutually agree to take the signs down, could it be simply a letter comes to the planning board saying there has been a mutual agreement to remove these signs, and we don't have to come back and have another hearing and revise plans, because that creates more work for you and kind of
I think we could set that up through the town planner.
Yeah.
Right? That's
something simple.
That works.
Okay.
We don't want to see all that stuff back and forth. We just want you both to work it out.
You guys work it out. Don't ask us to do it.
And this is a suggestion.
Get a word in.
Not to kill this point, but instead of saying no parking, you could say no Inley event parking. And then that would at least alleviate it, meaning that if I was coming up to visit you, I'd be like, oh, well, I'm not here for an Inley event. I can park for your party that you're going to invite us all to.
What else do you do? Put parking only?
So,
anyway, that's a minor point. Forget about it.
Let's give Bob a shot.
Just a couple of things. Is there a Watch Hill Neighborhood Association? I assume there is.
There is.
Homeowners Association, whatever. And would or could Inley be represented on that, in that group? I mean, there's certainly people who have an interest in Watch Hill and the roads and the traffic and everything. So I'm thinking about how we've all spoken glowingly of the need for communication here this evening, which is perfectly obvious and necessary, and maybe there's a more or less formal way to make sure that happens and continues. So I just put that out there for people to think about. The other thing was the one provision of the 2001 conditions that hasn't been spoken about today that's concerned with parking is off-site parking and shuttle bus service. And I don't know if that's been considered, talked about, whether it's deem necessary from time to time? Would it be a good idea? It seems like it deserves a little bit of an airing, at least.
I think Mr. Karen spoke to it very quickly, so not everyone may have heard it. When that condition was put in place, the school did not own what is now the middle school up down near 123, that parcel, and didn't own Sunflower Hill.
Right.
And that's where 87 approximately, to Mr. Limbacher's point, whether it's, I don't know, 57 or 53 or 30 or 32, that's where there is now a significant number of parking has been picked up. So that condition talked about getting 50 parking spaces on site. With the properties they've acquired, they believe, they have been at special events, been parking in excess of that.
Okay.
And that's why, if it's in the 2001 condition and it's not going anywhere, it's there, but then to reinstate it again in the new permit, they're saying if we need off-the-guide parking, we'll get it. What we commented on when we saw one of the earlier drafts of the motions was, don't require the school to have a contract, if it's necessary, like I said, if they need to put cars somewhere, they're gonna find a place to put the cars. But to make it a mandatory contract, and then after they've added these two parcels and this additional parking, and it's not directly related to this project, didn't seem appropriate or necessary.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm more or less going, is that it's not been found to be necessary in the school's experience.
There is, in the plan, there's a bullet item, I think, about the parking.
Well, to the extent that you actually need it, you will acquire it.
They'll do it.
And it won't be an excuse for parking cars all over creation, right? It's your obligation to find off-street parking if you don't have enough here, right? And provide safe access for people to get to the school. Because I think one of the things that was in the 2001 decision was to make sure that people weren't walking along 123 to get there. Yeah.
So it's just that the new proposed conditions was then recreating it anew, which we didn't feel was necessary for this project.
We could just keep
fine.
the 2001 condition.
I'll accept that. Good, thank you.
Okay.
So we had, I think, boil it down to three basic points. Number one was the overall event parking, which I feel is fairly solved, or at least we come to an agreement on. Number two is the traffic plan for the drop-off. The only thing I'm a little bit just confused about, or what we got in the came to a decision, was those 11 spaces, are we going to show them on the plan or not show them on the plan? And by default, if we don't show them on the plan, is it just assumed that the private way allows both access to park? It may be some future possibility.
Well, I think what Laura said is probably right, is that we probably shouldn't insert ourselves in people's, private rights on that street, if you will, other than to the extent that we have to maintain access, safe access on the street.
So to me, it's like, on the plan, do we show the 11 spaces or not? That's what it comes
I
down
don't
to.
think we need to.
I think we need to.
We don't need to.
We don't show everybody else's rights in front of their property, so I don't think we need to show it here either.
So I guess what I'm just trying to clarify is, I think you were concerned about if you didn't show the 11 spaces on the plan, it was somehow...
used as a hammer.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing that's not the case, or we couldn't ever do that.
You just have to put on the plan that it won't be the case, and we'll be fine.
I just have a suggestion to Laura, because I understand council's concern, which is I was kind of getting at it, but from a different wording than your council did, which is, even if there was just a statement that, the planning board of this decision does not address the rights of people, the rights of property owners in the private way, and just leave it, we're not talking about that. And we're not addressing it. Just a statement to say, we're not addressing it.
That sounds fine.
And then that way, you're not saying, we do have rights, we don't have rights, you're just saying, but you're saying, we're not speaking to it at all.
Right, but we are saying we are endorsing sort of a special event parking plan, right?
If you can make a statement to that effect, that we are not speaking to the rights of private parties in the way, can we take them off, then we can take them off the plan. and then you're not endorsing them, and we're not, asserting them.
Right. And you're not intending to integrate them into your special event parking
Right.
plan?
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Is that kind of gets us there, Laura? Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Well, I know you spoke to council, so I just want to make sure it was consistent.
So it's getting late.
All right, so let's go through that motion.
What we don't have is we don't actually have specific language for all of this, right? And
Well, we have most of it. I just was going to go back to, could you kind of reframe whatever you just said about the overall event parking?
Okay, so, I guess the conclusion that we came to, and again, that's what I think Bill was trying to drive home, was that there seemed to be an adequate level of parking on site now, or the neighbors weren't concerned with special events where they were parking out in front or parking on Sunflower Hill. That's kind of what you were coming down to, right? Like the graduation as an example, or whatever special event. That's not where we were hearing the neighbors' complaints. It was more about the everyday drop-off.
So maybe there's no need to put anything on
parking,
them.
whether it's special event parking, right? The neighbors have to be sure that A, they have a right of access, and two is that they don't have the parking in their yards. That's the critical point.
And we have to be clear that there needs to be safe access for public safety vehicles.
Right. So I think what Bill was, at least what I heard him saying, is that as long as no one goes up Watch Hill Drive and no one's parking, let's say that's the 2015 Christmas pageant, if there's 57 cars up on Sunflower Hill or 157 cars, we don't really care if they can do it. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care whether they put 300 cars, where they put them. As long as they don't put them up past the point of...
Right.
Well, this is the last thing I'm going to say about parking, but the only problem I see with that is if there isn't room up on Sunflower Hill, they're going to be all over the street on both sides, because they're going to want to go to the...
Well, I think that's what they just said. They were not going to allow it.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, whatever. I kind of agree to disagree. I mean,
That's where it kicks in that if they have to get off-site, they're going to get off-site parking. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's where
okay,
the program...
that's great, but I guess maybe I am sounding cynical, but it's because we've had a number of conversations where I was told very directly that the town had no right to ask for off-site parking, and that was way beyond the scope of what we could do, only to find out that, that really...
Well,
not only was that not the case, but now that's swinging around the other way. So anyway, okay, I'm done. Thank you for indulging me. Actual access for emergency
I would love a
vehicles.
sidewalk along 123, but that's a whole other subject. Yeah.
I'm looking for an airport.
So, one of the things we would need to make sure happens is that the plans that we're endorsing are modified in accordance with what you've said.
And I think there's a draft condition that says that the final plans have to be submitted, like that's a condition you had in there, right?
We did have one that said any modification, yeah.
That one had to do with the...
So we can make a condition that those representations of vehicles north of the prior location of the mailbox shall be removed from the
I
final.
have findings of fact, I don't have
One of your
conditions.
conditions you had prior to scheduling the pre-construction conference, the following shall be provided. One was a revised plan containing, and if you say that the changes noted on the record at this hearing, we can then get you that plan.
Okay, and the change was specifically that those representations of the cars were going to be taken off?
Yeah, I think it's just taking the 11, the red spaces off, the red cars off, and taking the note about the athletic field off. And our understanding is we're taking that off, and you're going to add a sentence about we're not speaking to anybody who's ever had rights in Watch Hill Drive.
Yeah.
So that would be language versus a change to the plan.
And then the
risk of being sort of the party pooper here, it sounds like we need to get this language right, and the question is, do you have it written well enough that we can do this, or should we draft something, get it to them, review it, make sure it's all right, so that we don't...
That sounds kind of reasonable, given that it's a quarter of 11.
Can I tell you the concern is tomorrow's graduation? then there's only 2 months, and then the children come back. And there's demolition that has to happen, and a lot of work. And if we push this off weeks, then we're pushing off the ability to get the work done in a safe manner when there's no children. We'd rather stay, I know you would like to go home, we're happy to stay and walk through and, whatever her most recent draft is, and I think as long as you get the language agreement in concept and she's taking notes, I would think that would be sufficient.
We're actually writing it right now, okay? So I mean, the actual language is going to be in the decision, so it's not like a concept, it's the actual language, okay? So I want to make sure we get that right. And yeah, I realize that it's difficult, but...
I think also where we've spent so much time on it, maybe each of you would really like to look at this and digest it instead of just, just doing it on the fly. But, it's up to you, whatever you want to do.
What do you guys think?
How do I serve two masters? In other words, I want to make sure, as well as you want to make sure, that the language is right that protects your rights. It satisfies the relationship between you and the neighbors. The same token, I can understand that you're under a time frame to get a shovel in the ground.
It's a safety issue. The more work that gets done before Labor Day is the less heavy outdoor construction that's happening when children are coming on the site.
It's actually, it's actually specifically related to the pouring of concrete. So we need to get the concrete poured, correct? So it's...
When does that all start?
The demolition was, but before we got, delayed and sidetracked and so forth, demolition was going to start as soon as school got up. And we haven't been able to get to that point, and to wait another 2 weeks would affect the schedule.
Didn't you request
So
the delay?
I think Laura...
Immaterial.
I think that Laura and I spoke about the fact the other day, this would be a late meeting, and we were trying to get some language going back and forth, but I understand a lot was worked out tonight. So, maybe we could try for 10 minutes right now for Laura and Susan to sit down. She can get this down, we'll get a few bullet points down, and would you guys be able to vote that the intent of those bullet points will be...
No, we actually need to vote on an actual motion. We've got to have the actual language.
All right, so we're committed to do it right now, and Laura and I had spoke about this in advance.
I mean, the last draft I saw was one that came on Friday. I don't know how much Laura has tweaked it since Friday. You had a draft on Friday.
Well, actually, this isn't that different from that, but I had added in some things that are coming out. The only thing is...
would you mind if
and maybe we can just, could you just make some copies?
Is there not an appeal period once we make this decision?
But they have the right to proceed at their own risk.
So maybe about,
We don't want to set something up for an appeal. We want to get this right. That's right. At the end of the day, that's what we want to do, so.
Could I input a little bit as well? My daytime job is with the building department, and of course, you need permits to do all this work, including a demolition permit. And you also know we've not seen anything in the building department as yet that would lead to the issuance of such a permit.
I believe we have applied for a permit.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It would have been within the last couple of days.
The demolition permit?
Well, the full building
The
permit.
full permit. But you can issue the demolition prior to the...
Well, that's actually where I'm going, because if it became necessary, that could happen. What's your sort of lead time to start actual construction forward of your? No, I mean, how long is it going to take you to get ready to do the actual construction?
The actual construction start is nominally would be July 1st, and the excavation, the great deal of the demolition.
Right. Which might, conceivably be possible, even if we're still discussing the conditions that we're talking about discussing tonight.
I would imagine a short form demolition permit.
Right. I think that might be a route to be investigated.
That'd be great.
So you're suggesting that could proceed prior to approval?
I don't see why not. Again, it's at the proponent's risk, of course, but the risk is fairly minimal.
I think we're almost there. We
Yeah,
just have to clarify.
I'm just
I mean,
putting that out on the table.
I'm completely cognizant of the fact that they have a schedule, and I want to adhere to that schedule, and I don't think we want to delay the project, but if there's a way that we can do that in a reasonable compromise, where we're not delaying the project by any means, but we're still giving us time to review the conditions, I think that seems like a reasonable. I mean, our intent is certainly not to delay by any means. I think everyone, even all the neighbors here said, it's a good project, we want this to go forward. So it's just the details, basically, about how this goes forward.
And I think by the introduction of a lot of sort of different legal opinions and all of that, we need to make sure we get this right, okay? Because as you suggest, it's going to be something that you have to live with, right?
Right.
And we want to make sure that we can live with it as well as the proponent and that the neighbors can live with it.
Well, as long as I guess as the building department, you're 100% sure that they can go forward with the demolition permit without having all the conditions?
No.
Interesting.
And that application's going to come around to our department to look at, right?
Correct.
So how are we going to sign off on it if you haven't voted this yet?
Think on this for a moment. Well, you wouldn't necessarily be asked to comment on a demolition permit, would you, Laura?
So let me just suggest
If it's
this.
demolition only?
No, but maybe, yeah.
Our next meeting is June 25th.
Yeah.
And it seems to me we should be able to have everything wrapped up for that. And the question is that sufficient for your construction schedule? If we had an approval on the 25th of June.
What I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, is our schedule was based on an approval. Over-aggressive assumption by us. In hindsight, I was being 2020, 3 meetings ago. So we are kind of stretched right now, and none of us want to sit here and work through this, but we still would like to get this done tonight, as I informed Laura was our intention.
The issue would be not necessarily a hard construction start, but making a lot of commitments, financial, legal commitments to contractors.
Because they look like they're in different orders, like I'm just trying to match them up to what you did.
And are you going to make those
for that you
the appeal period or?
Early purchase of materials.
Yeah, for that, you'd need what we're talking about doing here.
Oh, okay, so like, no, don't.
And are you making that commitment prior to the appeal period?
Okay.
We would be making that.
Yep.
So I just took this out and tried to shorten it because it's getting late and I tried to take out.
No, and I see you took out the insufficient parking, so that's helpful.
And then I took this out on the...
What's your opinion on doing it without?
Oh, no, this is good. This is good.
But even if you got approval tonight, you've got 20 days of an appeal period.
We got approvals.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of getting into the private way stuff, but this is helpful because then this substitutes. Okay, so then
Parenthetically, the building department also has, by statute, 30 days to issue a permit after it's applied for.
Well, yeah, of course.
So,
I think this is...
we got a gun held to our heads, too.
Did they ever agree to put any kind of signage up
By the 14th.
as you go down the
June 14th.
Okay.
that would say, or they also, it's not like
Or it's
constructively approved.
there's going to be,
Presumably they would give us an extension, right?
there's going to be signs that say left turn only
So-
or no right turn, one or the other.
Okay, but nothing like here saying.
I would vote to...
Well, that's up here.
I know you...
But you see.
It's fine with me.
And we can stop at each time.
So this is potential, this is the potential that we're talking about. This is on the circulation side.
So you would have the sign be up here, and say like no parking.
We're not going to
Oh, yeah,
finish
see
till
resident
5:30.
parking only.
So so there's the sign,
Quarter to 12.
and then,
Which is fine, I'll stay here and do that. I just want to make sure
If I could just look at
that
yours
we
real
don't.
quick, I think
We don't
yours
get
might
this
have
wrong.
put in the sign.
So we've got to get the language right, and so we may spend a fair amount of time doing all this.
One is, on the conditions.
Anyone else's
One is
thoughts?
good,
I'm okay with doing it if you
three
guys
is
are-
good.
We should knock it out. Yeah, we really, it's gonna
Needs to come out,
it's gonna get messy if we don't.
something in about the sign.
But I mean, I'm looking at this, it talks about the number, square foot number, right? I don't think I need that.
What's that?
I don't need to worry about parking spots.
I don't even have, I don't
They're
have
doing-
those.
But if you do the, if you have in your conditions.
Oh, I see what you're saying, right.
Parking, that is
I look at number
modifications
four.
with respect to parking, and they have all the parking.
That's the zoning. I'm talking about whether or not Emily would accept a condition that says that there should be a sign.
I mean, because it's a school, it's not held to the Scituate zoning bylaws.
Parking is
No,
There
reasonable.
is, there's already,
reasonable, that's reasonable.
it's these all these parking plans right here. They say no parking. They're gonna, the thing we're asking flexibility about is, what are the signs?
I think you have to make a decision based on this, and we're waiving this
They want a sign
requirement.
that says,
Or you could sit there and say,
something very specific.
So I think it's like is it Mr. Taylor said, like no parking or something to that extent? Like, isn't that what he's saying, like no inland?
Yeah, I guess
And I would say to the
And as long as we have signage on the plan, but isn't that what we talked about, having flexibility with you so that you can work out with whatever Emily and the neighbors agree to on that signage? You can come.
I'll never get involved with this thing.
Well, we're talking
If I
about
could
what
help
you
it.
This is going to be the
I'm gonna hit the men's room, I'll be back.
shows them on the plan.
go on recess.
let's take a 5-minute recess.
Can we get, we take a vote to take a 5-minute recess?
We're gonna take a 5-minute.
We're like this close.
You think you'd be ready by 11?
Yes.
5 minutes?
Okay.
There's one other question
Yeah.
for you.
You can read, I can read.
How we're getting rid of
We're
the
on recess.
red parking spots.
Yes, those are all gonna come off the plan.
You also have 3 of them.
That's on that plan. Oh, really? Well, can you guys come here a second? Because we were talking about these up here,
Right,
but then there's these,
I'm saying for consistency,
what are we doing with these
Should
three
those
on the drop-off pickup
Well,
plan?
it is the right thing to do.
I mean, it's just the same theoretical framework. We don't really care about them as much. Because this is,
If you don't care
It's
about
your
them, then
property.
we'd like to keep them.
but it's legally, it's inconsistent.
Well, that's true. I mean, we are saying, you know,
Yeah, actually, I think if we're going to take red spaces off, we take them off. I don't want to create
Okay.
the negative inference that because some are on and some are off, there's a distinction.
Yeah, it's just kind of.
but we'll get, so we're not up to that point in here, so right now, when we're talking about, so the one you were talking about taking out was this number 6. Instead of talking about this, you can say the parking, so we're on number 6 down here. So in here, if we refer to, the parking, the no parking signs shown on the plan, parking signs shown on the plan may be modified or removed upon mutual agreement of, I don't know, how do you do that? How do you enforce that? How do you go there?
I wouldn't go there.
So do we just take it, we just leave them there, and as the chair was
Here's what
saying?
we're thinking, that we might need them there for a while.
Right,
as the
until people
process
get used,
goes
so
in.
why don't we just leave it? Why don't we just?
And then
You're
we
gonna
can,
need, I think that access up there needs to be preserved,
right.
you know, for more than a
Right.
while.
Yes, but that's why they're gonna be put in there, and in fact, there's temporary ones there now, not like in the ground. I think there's temporary posted, no parking
Yeah.
signs now. But the point I was making, to the extent your condition says any modifications with respect to parking shall conform to the plan, and the plan shows the sign, and it's already covered. right? Because the signs are on the plan.
I'm not
The project
talking about,
has-
do the neighbors still feel very strongly about having the sign that says no inland parking beyond this point? Or are we maybe we're way past that?
We're past.
I think what they were talking about was having multiple lines was the issue.
Yeah.
Aren't we talking, isn't it this line and where they want it to go, which is something we were talking about?
Yeah, they want
They also
so
want it down about here.
Well, but they
that's-
agreed, I think they agreed out in the hall to talk about that
Did they?
offline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe the whole signage. Okay, fine.
Okay, and then we just keep the plan the way it is, as the chair suggested, but take those red cars off everywhere they appear.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll get to that one in a second. So I'm just looking at,
About the shuttle bus service, and we need to take that out.
right, because the agreement was to rely on the 2001 to the extent that it's still in effect.
Conditions.
Okay, so I'm okay, so you're gonna add this, which I think is fine, if you wanna keep that one in there. Okay, so that can become, and then.
I'm not really
I think we
worried
should
about
keep
that.
some at 6 and then break this.
Okay,
The
so,
numbering.
right, the
Worried about
numbering,
wording,
okay.
I'm not worried about the
And then the
numbering.
pre-construction stays same, except we're gonna get in what has to go in the revised plan.
Representations of the cars north of the crossroad, okay.
Would you keep out of 6?
The first
All of them are gonna be.
It's all
Private road, please.
It's all, so on this, on this,
Provisions, and then add this decision does not address
I think I maybe, this is the old one,
private
because the new ones say draft on them, so I'm
this
looking
thing
at.
in
You know what, they took them from me.
and leave it at that.
Yep.
So I think it's gonna be on the drop off, on the drop off plan,
Recognize.
the 3 red cars north of the crosswalk. I think it should be all cars north of the crosswalk on Watch Hill Drive shall be removed from the plan.
Yeah, that's good,
Yep.
that's what I have.
So all
that's called the
cars,
drop-off and what? And
this is on the drop off, yeah, so on plan, or you can just put the plan numbers, C002A and C002B. So if all cars shown on Watch Hill Drive north of the crosswalk on C002A and C, I'm not using it. Okay, all right, whichever would be easier. But we're not gonna get any more changes from Merrill, right? So can we take that one out?
Well, they say they're gonna park cars.
Because we can't get any more changes from Merrill after they vote tonight.
You know, I'm concerned
I
about
don't have any more.
what happens in
yeah, that's
the building
sort of a
department.
standard one that we usually
If they are
But I mean, as long as they're
moving
not
on
gonna.
this
Okay, now they had talked
way
about
they're
the
talking
lighting
about it,
intensity at one of the last.
Oh, no, that
sounds like
wasn't,
they think
were
they can walk in and and walk out the same day with a permit.
They were
That ain't
putting that
happening.
one in there, and that one's okay. So I think
So,
that's it.
I'm a little concerned in terms of their timeline, what happens in our office, because you don't walk in,
The only thing.
you know, and right, and walk out with it.
I know that it took me a long time to get a permit.
Yeah, there you go, right, and that was for just a house.
But this
It's
right
not just a house, it's a big house.
I understand, right, and a very nice house, I might add. But,
Seen it recently?
no, actually, I should put it
Lighting's
on.
going up.
There's a generic
That's cool.
condition.
I'll take a
Where
drive
she
down.
added that any modifications to the parking shall conform to
You know,
the approved site plan.
Just for the demo permit, we need an asbestos certification, if there's no asbestos in the property. I know. We need a rodent control
Exactly.
deal.
Yes, yeah.
We need to inform the neighbors.
Well, it's at any
Draft letter to the
they show
neighbors.
the people on the plan. They show the parking attendant, if any parking attendant shown on the plan.
That's fine.
So, and then there's a condition that says we have to conform to the plan. So that's kind of a catch-all? Does that work?
That's fine, that works for me.
They should come and get a separate, they should come in and get a separate demolition permit. Because it's gonna take us, if they're gonna move the way they're, moving ahead the way they're talking about.
So in this finding of facts, I think somewhere we need to make sure you reference the site plan administrative review for the art park as a fact, okay? That's all.
Agreement that the initial screening shall be as shown on the plan. So I just need to
Oh,
write
okay.
that one.
We would have been talking about.
So I was afraid of this could take.
But that's
It's all right. You know, we've all,
Why don't I just,
we stay here long enough, I won't have to go home.
Is there a cot in there?
No, but Neil's got a very nice, comfortable reclining chair.
showing on the site plan.
Who does?
Neil.
Really?
Well, I mean, just, like an executive office chair. I'm sure I could sleep in it if I were tired of it.
Okay.
Well, initially installed screening.
Just roll you down the hill, Man Lot Road.
No, it's not far.
Now, are you on the right or the left?
Going down the hill on the left. Yeah. Yeah, it's the first house after the Ellis Estate property stops. So, the first house after the forest.
Bob, what this one says, right, which I think we can just leave as is, right? This is the old one, right? It says that's where more parking is required than is available on the site.
Yeah, there's
right?
nothing wrong with that.
So, I think you just leave it that way.
Yeah, you
right?
gotta
don't
make the
touch it.
judgment as to whether it's
Yeah. I mean, it does say that, ultimately, it does say that they should have
that's probably what they don't want to have in
right,
there.
but they can't change that. This exists, right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we're not changing any of this,
Yeah.
right? Unless we actually write in there, we're no longer requiring this. This is a requirement, right? We can choose to enforce it or not, but it's a requirement.
I guess Eric was.
Okay.
Right?
So are you gonna reference it?
Yeah, that's what I told Laura, is we ought to just use it as a finding of fact, right? That there's an existing, site plan.
Okay, not make it a condition, just
Right,
reference
it's a finding
it.
of fact, right?
Perfect.
In the 2006 special administrative site plan,
Yep.
they were told that the
Portables?
portables were to be out in 3 years. They're still there.
Oh, I know.
And are they going to continue to use them during the construction?
No, they're bringing in new ones. They're gonna demo the existing ones and bring in new ones.
This will remove them.
Yes, but it'll bring
Yeah,
in new ones.
they're gonna bring in new ones to, one year.
The portables.
I've seen plans for those, so I know that's happening. No, the demo is actually the portables is what they're demoing, basically.
We forgot to, we sort of have to reconcile this, I think.
I think
we
what
do
you
it
do
in
is
the
you
conditions.
sit there and say, table minimum requirements requires so many
Yeah.
square feet, X number
Would
of
What happened
require,
to
right?
Laura?
Excuse me?
Do you know where Laura
I
went?
think she went to photocopy some things.
Oh, okay.
requires could be met either on-site or via satellite.
Oh, no, Laura's,
She abandoned us.
she'll be back, I'm sure.
We should send over pizza.
No. That'll just prolong things.
The agony.
Yeah, that's right.
If you sit there and say that they can use either on-site or satellite.
This is the only thing she doesn't have on the copy. This is the speeding one, so that's where we're starting with. I don't know how you feel about it. That's what my client dictated to me.
Well, here she is.
That's the only one that's not. Or the only one we didn't write out was the one on this weekend, so
Yeah.
I just.
Okay,
But-
I couldn't
No,
really
well, I
figure
just-
out what you.
We just wrote something around it.
I think it's a little bit too broad, right? I think
I feel like, if you really want to put something like this in there, put it in there, but I just don't know what it really means.
No, I think we want them to install the screening. They're agreeing to do that, so this is just a written commitment to do that. I would say they ought to make sure the things live for the first year, right? You gotta have some kind of warranty on
You
this.
hear them for the first
And maintain
couple of years, but then they're good for,
We're going to invest tens of thousands of dollars in that.
So make the commitment. Make the commitment you're gonna take care of them for the first year at least, right?
Yeah, a year is not that much.
That's all I'm saying. We ask that of most people who do landscaping plans,
yeah,
right?
but there are other people who have really spent just as much. Well,
You don't have to. You can tell us that's not what you want,
I
right?
think if they're saying we would commit to maintain for a year, I think that's reasonable, and I understand what you're saying, but in the fact that it's so late, 3 years.
You're gonna get a warranty from the landscaping contractor for it.
It's a sidebar right now.
Anyway, so it's no skin off your nose.
And then. So it's going to say they're going to initially install screening as shown on the site plan and maintain the same for 1 year. And then whatever happens to it after, you're going to want it there. It's just if it's...
Do you know how, like, practically speaking, impossible to enforce this is?
Do you really want the applicant to rely on impossible to enforce?
Then why are we putting it there?
No, because it's a commitment. We're making a commitment. The chair has asked us to put the commitment in writing. We're happy to do it. We're happy.
Laura, you know how to enforce it through the building department. You don't have to enforce it.
We're gonna send Bob over there.
There you go.
We're gonna
Make sure we get the warranty from the...
we'll review the project specifications, and the landscape spec is gonna have a 1-year warranty on all plant material. So it'll be there.
Well, I wrote notes on that. You know, you can't hand me a piece of paper without the writing on it. So you have a later version?
Tomorrow, yeah. No, by the 14th, right?
Which is, oh, right, okay, next week.
I think we get. I think it's Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday.
Yeah. So it has to be filed by Monday.
By Monday.
You should say only obligation thereafter is to maintain full.
Okay, that's good.
Excuse me.
I just have a question. These are, it's the finding of fact. Is there a, I don't see a motion to approve. Oh, wait, I never.
Keep going, keep going. It's there.
7 and 1.
Yep, got it.
It just,
Only obligation thereafter shall be. Okay, so this is, their concern was, well, what happened this year, they didn't want any ambiguity. So we'll initially install screening as shown on the site plan, and only obligation thereafter shall be the same for 1 year. Okay. Are you good with that? Okay. If the board's good with that, then we're good. Okay.
Do we need to first have a motion to close the public hearing?
Do we have to close the public hearing first?
Yeah, you can do, we don't always do that,
Come
but,
back up and vote it, because that way...
oh, yeah, I think we want to leave the public hearing up until, yeah.
Right, because there's going to be some comments for sure, right?
oh, let's hope not, but you're probably right.
I don't know.
There was the only, well, I think we, John's.
Yeah.
That's great, we just, Laura and I had gone through it, but then we hadn't put in about making sure that the screening gets installed. So there's a now, and they'll read them all, one that it shall be installed and maintained for a year. So to make sure, you usually get a warranty for a year, something like that. So now that's what I was just bringing up and giving to the chair.
Was there mention about fertilization and pruning?
Organic.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting punchy now.
maybe goes in.
Time.
We have a ways to go yet.
Yeah, don't give up.
Yes, they're gonna read it. They have to read it
Make sure
now.
you can read it.
Yeah, let's just.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have a motion?
So at each of these, I'll try to be slow, and if there is after I read the paragraph or the particular number, we can stop, and if there's no comment, we'll go forward. So the site plan administrative review of 46 Watch Hill Drive, the Inley School new classroom addition.
Oh, okay, sorry, fine.
I move to make the following findings of fact. So, number 1, the property at 46 Watch Hill Drive is occupied by the Inley School and is located in the Residence R-1 zoning district and Water Resource Protection District. The table of use regulations indicates the uses is allowed by right in this zoning district. According to General Law C-40A,
Section.
that's what, section, thank you. Section 3, no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit, regulate, or restrict the use of land or structures for educational purposes on land owned by a nonprofit educational corporation, provided that such land or structures may be subject to reasonable regulations for the bulk and height of structures and determining yard sizes, lot area, setbacks, open space, parking, and building coverage requirements. That is the end of section 1. Any comments?
You can just kind of go through.
Okay.
On the findings, Richard, I think you can just go right through.
Number 2.
We don't need to,
The planning board approved
A site plan.
a site plan administrative review for the Inley School Art Barn in May 2001 with conditions relating to parking and traffic and circulation. All these conditions remain in effect.
Can we say except to the extent modified herein?
Yes.
Thank you.
Except to the extent modified herein.
Go.
Number 3. According to the site plan, the proposed addition will be 26 feet in height, below the maximum of 35 feet allowed in a residential zoning district. The applicant agreed that the addition will be located so as to meet required setbacks and agreed to hire a surveyor to conform
done
those setbacks if required by the building commissioner.
But I think he skipped a number 2.
Did I?
Number 2.
Oh.
No.
The number 2 was
Oh,
on
yeah,
the
he
side.
did, okay.
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry, okay. All
We
right.
can,
Yep.
yeah.
I thought we wiped out number 2.
only half of it.
No, you gotta
I totally screwed up. Okay, so number 3.
plan.
The applicant submitted the site plan entitled New Classroom Addition for the Inley School at Scituate, Massachusetts, comma, site plan review submittal dated March 31st, 2015, with revisions through May 8th, 2015, by Sean P. Malone, professional engineer for Peterman Architects Incorporated. That was number 3. I'm sorry, now on to number 4. According to the site plan, the proposed addition will be 26 feet in height, below the maximum of 35 feet allowed in a residential zoning district. The applicant agreed to that addition, the applicant agreed that the addition will be located so as to meet required setbacks and agreed to hire a surveyor to conform those setbacks if required by the building commissioner. Number 5. The Scituate zoning bylaw, section 760.6, comma, table of minimum parking requirements requires 1 parking space for every 200 square feet of building area for educational exempt uses. The plan shows 64 designated parking spaces, and there are others off of Route 123 not shown on the plan. The net gross square footage added to the campus will be 10,500 square feet after the accounting for the removal of the modular classroom units. Thus, the parking will require the addition of 52 parking spaces. The site plan only shows 2 additional parking spaces.
Yeah, I think we need to sit there and say, but the applicant has demonstrated that either on-site, that parking requirements can be met using on-site or satellite parking.
Agreed.
Sounds good?
Let me hold you up.
All right.
Can you repeat that?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I sit there and it says that the applicant has demonstrated that the parking requirements can be met either on-site or using satellite parking.
Number 6, the Watch Hill Drive neighborhood provided
Just, I'm sorry, satellite, I would just call it off-site parking. Because I think that's consistent with what the Art Barn approval says.
Yeah.
So, satellite might be
Is that
considered.
acceptable?
I was just keeping in with my flying image that I presented.
All right. Number 6, the Watch Hill Drive neighborhood provided information in a letter dated May 12, 2015, that parking and traffic flow for the Inley School has been an ongoing problem during normal school hours and during special events. Observations by the town planner on June 8, 2015, found that approximately a dozen cars were parked on the grass during the daytime, and cars were parked opposite the school and north of the main entrance during the afternoon pickup period. In order to maintain safe conditions for children, parents, teachers, other employees of the school, and residents of the Watch Hill Drive, an adequate supply of parking accessible to school buildings should be provided.
You can go up to number 7, this decision.
Actually, Laura, I would suggest we include the first sentence of number 6 and then add your other sentence to that.
Okay.
Which is actually number 7 now, right?
Yeah, it's number 7, yeah.
Would begin Watch Hill Drive as a private road.
Right.
Okay, which just says this decision does not address, okay, I was going to take out number 6, but you want to keep the first sentence?
of number
Okay.
6 and then add your sentence.
Okay, so that's actually number 7, right?
Right, the old number
Okay,
6.
so,
I'm really confused now.
no, it's the new number.
Okay.
I just read, on the previous page, I just read number
Okay,
6.
I'm less confused. Okay, great. So the first sentence of number 7.
Number 7 is, Watch Hill Drive is a private road, and police are not authorized to ticket or enforce posted no parking provisions. This decision does not address the rights of private parties. I was like, pastries? Private parties in the private way of Watch Hill Drive. That's a good one. Okay, number 8. The site plan entitled New Classroom Addition for the Inley School at Scituate, Massachusetts, Site Plan Review, submittal dated March 31st, 2015, with revisions through May 8th, 2015 by Sean P. Malone, professional engineer for Peterman Architects Incorporated, meets the requirements of the Town of Scituate zoning bylaw, section 770.6. Site plan review standards of review to a degree consistent with reasonable use of the site for the purpose permitted by the regulations of the district in which the land is located.
Okay.
Any comment?
So shall we vote on the findings of fact here?
Anything else in addition?
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Are we ready to tackle?
We're ready to go on.
I move to approve the site plan referenced above, should I say, the site
Yeah,
plan?
you just referenced it like in the last finding that you made.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
move to
fine.
approve the site plan referenced in the last,
Now, above with the following conditions.
with the, above with the following conditions. Number 1, any modifications to the bulk and height of structures, yard sizes, lot areas, setbacks, open space, building coverage, parking, as well as the existing stormwater management system shall conform to the approved site plan. Prior to scheduling the pre-construction conference, the site plan shall be modified to conform to the conditions below to address...
Oops. Okay, just stop there, because you don't want to talk about a deficiency in parking, I don't think. Because I think everyone's agreed that there is not a deficiency. Okay, so just below, and then stop, move on to the
Okay,
next
so the
one.
conditions below.
Got it.
Number 2, where this site plan administrative review requires approval, permitting, or licensing from any local, state, or federal agency, such required approval, permitting, or licensing is deemed a condition of the Town of Scituate Planning Board's approval of this site plan. All necessary permits and approvals must be received prior to construction. Materials and details of construction shall meet all requirements of the DPW, the Board of Health, the Fire Department, the Conservation Commission, Building Department, the State Building Code, and the Commissions on Disabilities. Number 3, the Building Department may require a survey stamped by a licensed land surveyor to ensure the building can be built as shown, meeting all setback requirements. Number 4, all roof drain piping within and beneath the building slab shall be included on the building permit plan submitted with an application for a plumbing permit to ensure the roof drain system below the building complies with the Mass State Building Code.
Plumbing code.
Plumbing.
Code.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, Massachusetts State Plumbing Code.
Okay, and then I think you would go to number 5 for the right of access.
Okay. Number 5, the right of access for neighbors.
And actual access?
And actual access for emergency vehicles shall be maintained.
We got to add
The no
how
park.
we got to add how they're going to do it.
Oh, I don't know about that.
They'll figure it out.
That's the whole intent of this exercise. If we didn't need to do that, we could have gone home at 8:30.
Okay.
We've got to reference the.
I thought that, I thought that's what you all were not wanting to be specific about.
No.
No, it should be in accordance with the plan, right?
I mean, if you want to reference the drop-off pickup plan or the both plans, the drop-off pickup in accordance with the drop-off pickup and the event planning, the event plan, parking plan, I guess
Do you want to say, that actually, I think, makes a great deal of sense if you say in accordance with, and then you can reference all those plans.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't have, the plan doesn't indicate that I'm going to have somebody out there basically.
It does.
Yeah, no,
It does, it's on the
It's
plan.
It actually does.
shown. An attendant is actually shown on the plan,
Okay.
parking attendant.
But
There's
this should
a note.
be a plan that is modified with the changes that we agreed to, right? So it has to eliminate the note about parking on the
Yeah,
field.
well, we're getting to that in the very
Okay.
next section.
So should something
What
be,
does the note tell me?
That there'll be
You wanna know-
an
Would
attendant.
you like me to point out the note about the attendant again?
Let's just read it. Because I thought it was down low.
This is the drop-off and pickup plan. We say, drop-off and pickup time attendant here.
Okay, but I'm looking for an attendant up above.
Yeah, on the outlet side.
Head down, head up the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that can be one of the changes that we'll make,
No, actually, I want to farther up.
In
yeah, you want to move it
9B.
to here? That's probably the best place, because as they circulate through,
stop
to
them?
make sure no one comes up, and we're
Turns
gonna
right.
have that no right-hand turn sign here.
Right, I think it's the right place.
Okay.
So that's where the attendant's going to go.
Right.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? We're gonna move
So that's what
this
will
dot
come in under
here,
9B,
yeah.
right, Laura? That would be.
Yep.
That's where it should be,
Yeah.
that's where it should be, Billy, right?
Okay.
So this note that Richard just read shall be maintained in accordance with the revised parking plan, or whatever these
That's the
plans
drop-off
are, right?
pickup plan, yeah.
Okay, we can say all those plans, as revised below, because below we're going
As
to get...
revised in accordance with whatever the next one.
Yeah, I mean, you could reference it as the plan is titled or numbered C002A, dated, whatever it's dated.
I know, Laura, it's a joke between, a private joke between you and Laura.
Yeah, that's...
She likes name plans.
Oh, all
I
right.
like names, numbers are a little... Yeah. Anyway, okay.
So first of all, since Karen's kind of the
I can't read that.
That one's just drop off
official-
and pick up, but there's another page.
One.
That's the
Scribe.
event.
We should get the number of that one,
that
too.
being captured? Do I need to read
Yeah,
that?
no, that's fine, yeah. So you were saying the right of access for neighbors and actual access for emergency vehicles shall be maintained in accordance with, and then you're going to list all those plans as revised below.
Okay,
Sort of makes sense.
that's what I said. All right, so pre-construction. So this is actually down here, right? Like under B, this up here?
No, just pre-construction 8 and just read
Okay.
whatever that is, only it's really 6.
Actually, 8 and 1.
It's going to be 6. So pre-construction,
Okay. Number 6.
I'll tell you when you gotta change
pre-construction.
something.
A pre-construction conference, including the town's consulting engineer, the site contractor, and the town planner will be required prior to the start of construction. Number 7. Prior to scheduling the pre-construction conference, the following shall be provided to the planning board. A schedule of construction activities. B, a revised plan containing the representations
of the cars. What's that? You got
We
everything?
just, right after this sentence about, the plan revised below, have a separate sentence that says the plans are going to be revised to do the following things.
Yep.
Well,
Right.
the reason why this is over here is because this is all the things to do with the pre-construction. So before the pre-construction, we're just saying that's when you get that plan back.
Okay, well, then this ought to say something about specific plan, specific drop-off, pickup, and
Yeah, it's going to
special
go
event
through.
traffic plan should be
Yeah.
modified with
Okay,
these
well,
following
instead of
things,
maybe as revised, we could say which shall be revised as provided below.
right?
Okay, which shall be revised as provided below.
Okay, and now you're on to pre-construction, right?
Well, I'm just,
Okay.
I'm on
Okay.
B, so I'm up at your top
Yeah.
here. The representation.
Representation of the cars north of the crosswalk to Sunflower Hill shall be removed from
The plan.
the drop-off and pickup traffic flow plan.
There's more than
Yeah,
one
just
plan here.
trust me, yeah.
It's a drop-off pickup plan and the event parking.
Right.
And event parking
Those are the two
plan.
plans that show red cars north of
Right.
the
Good.
crosswalk.
Okay.
So instead of the plan, it'll be each of those, the drop-off,
Yeah.
pickup,
Okay,
Good work.
and the event planning.
so
event
then it
parking.
says the
The
language
language, yeah.
on allowing
parking in the athletic fields shall be removed from the plan.
Plans.
plans. Okay, thanks. And then I think you want to go over on the side where it says the location of the parking attendant.
Ooh, I don't have that.
Oh, okay, well, here.
The location of the parking attendant shall be moved beyond the Enley's northmost exit driveway.
So it's,
That's right.
yeah, up there somewhere is where you want him to be. Oh, okay, well, the northmost existing exit driveway,
Main school exit?
main school exit.
The main
okay.
school exit driveway.
Okay.
Okay,
Shall be moved beyond the main school entrance?
The exit.
Main school exit, that makes sense.
okay, okay.
All right, so now and what's this one up here? Drop off, pickup, traffic?
Yeah, you
That was
read
the plans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so then you've got the note about the lighting.
So now, a note stating that the lighting in the parking lot shall be programmable as to on-off and intensity. Number 3, or sub-bullet point 3, staging and soil stockpile areas, best management practices of earth dikes, barrier filters, hay bales, and temporary sedimentation sumps as needed, added to the erosion and sedimentation control plan. Subpart C of item 7, one final complete submittal in hard copy form for review to ensure all comments are addressed and to be maintained by the Planning Department office as a record submittal to be referenced in the approval. Now on to construction. I think this is it, if I say 8, is that right?
Yeah,
Probably.
No.
You say no?
yes, yes.
Oh. Okay, 8, construction. Stormwater control measures shall be maintained during construction according to the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan and is required by the Long-Term Pollution Prevention Plan and Stormwater Operation and Maintenance Plan dated March 2015. Water and sediment cannot be discharged into the existing infiltration system until the site is fully stabilized. Number 9, the town planner is to be notified when erosion control measures are installed, when construction begins, and when construction is completed. If deemed necessary by the town planner, temporary sedimentation basins, check dams, silt socks, and/or noise or dust control may be required. All erosion control measures shall remain until the town planner determines that the danger of erosion or sedimentation no longer exists. Number 10, construction work shall not begin prior to 7 a.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. on Saturday and shall cease no later than 7 p.m. or sunset, whichever is earlier. No construction shall take place on Sundays or legal/federal holidays. Number 11, there shall be no parking or idling of vehicles on Route 123 or Watch Hill Drive during construction. Number 12, Construction of the proposed site and site utilities shall be supervised by a registered professional engineer who shall certify in writing to the planning board and building commissioner that the site and site utilities were constructed in accordance with the approved plans. The certification shall be accompanied by as-built plans for the improvements shown on the plan, signed and stamped by a land surveyor and the supervising professional engineer. The as-built plans must be submitted to the planning board prior to the issuance of a final occupancy permit. Number 13, water and sediment cannot be discharged into the existing infiltration system until the site is fully stabilized.
That's a repeat, right?
Said that already.
Oh, one more is this one,
We gotta add the
Oh, yes.
screening.
14.
12, 13, yep. Number 14, thank you. Number 13, Enly will initially install screening as shown on the site plan
Make any difference.
only, then this one, or is that down?
And their only obligation.
And their only obligation shall be
Thereafter shall be.
thereafter to maintain the same for 1 year.
Somebody just pointed out that there's a redundancy. Number 15 is the same as the last line in number 8.
Okay, sorry about that, just take it out.
Number 13 is the same as
Yeah.
the last line.
Do I want to put a
Right.
note in, sitting there saying that signage should be,
They're going to do signage all privately among themselves, and they're all very happy.
Come back up and they can agree on the signs, and you can agree that the signs make sense, then I don't have to see them.
Right.
So let's.
Well, Laura doesn't want to be in the middle of it either.
Yeah, I think getting everyone to agree, I don't know if that's really something I want to take on.
Can you reread the screening one again, please?
But we just want to know if something's changed from the site plan.
Enly will initially install screening
Okay, just hold it.
as shown on the site plan, and their only obligation thereafter shall be to maintain the same for 1 year.
Make sure it doesn't die.
Yeah, keep it alive.
Okay, and then I think you want to add on to that, just sort of as a separate thing, that not connected with the approval. I guess we can do that now, can't we, the continuation?
But they need to vote and then we...
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Then we'll do that.
Then we can ask for the continuation.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else?
So just make sure that
The
I'm,
signage?
so if they've got 30 signs in there, to have them so close together, well, I don't think we need it.
Well, can we make it something that says actually signage will be agreed upon by the neighborhood and the Enly School for the parking?
But I think if it's a condition, then it really puts us in the middle of it.
Oh, okay.
It's just, I just think that's going to be kind of a labor-intensive
The signs are shown on the plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
then let it go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just hate like hell, let's see,
Wait,
with 20 signs when you only need 10.
Can we just say something that signage may be deviated upon written notice from the school and the abutters?
I think that's what
written to the
you said
board?
earlier was
So we
if we
just
send
say,
you a
we'll just send
letter-
you a letter signed by the school and the abutters agreeing to deviate from the signage. You don't have to get in the middle of it, but it would deem it done.
How do we know, is there like one representative one person who would represent the abutters, who could sign off?
Well,
For
all the
instance?
abutters should sign the letter. Everyone will sign it, and if everyone won't sign it, then we
Then it's
stick
gonna
with the
stick,
plan.
then they're gonna stay the way they are on the plan.
Okay, that's fair.
Is that fair?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. We'll get it.
Okay, so deviations from signage, help me out here.
So number 15, deviations from the street signage, the no parking signage, deviations from the no parking signage on the plans.
Pick up, drop
No,
off.
I'm sorry, Laura, I'm gonna start that sentence over.
Okay.
There may be deviations from the no parking signage on the
Yep.
plans upon submittal in writing, signed by Inley and Watch Hill Drive,
All Watch Hill Drive residents.
And all.
That's an overkill. I'm sitting there saying
How about the
something.
residents north of the,
Oh, yeah, north of right.
main school exit?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Why would you sit there and say that any changes in signage can be handled as field changes?
Oh, I don't want to get into that either,
She doesn't want to get into
because there'll be so much, potential disagreement.
Basically, you don't even
Believe me.
say signage, you just basically say, this is the plan you're going to implement. If you decide to change it and you all agree, let us know.
Fine, yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
that's it.
Good, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the neighbors north of the main school exit.
Right, because none
Okay.
of the neighbors south, I think, are here, right? Or-
Yeah, or probably,
Yep. Okay, so that's number 15. Great.
is that everything?
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, now we need a motion just to continue the date to file the decision to June 17th, if we could, because I'm going to be out, yeah, they need to request it, but I'm going to be out tomorrow, and,
I mean, today? Oh, it's almost-
yeah, whatever day it is.
All right, so we don't have that typed up, right?
We don't have that typed up.
So based
So
on
is
the
that-
applicant's request, I move that we,
Yeah, or do we have? are they
Yeah, well, I
agreeing?
think maybe she's writing us a request.
Well, okay, yeah.
Are you in
I think
agreement
you're
with that?
asking us, but it's fine either way, we're fine, we'll ask you. Please continue it to the 17th to file your decision.
Okay,
With that.
great. Great.
Excellent.
all right, so based on the application, or the applicant's request to extend the filing decision to June 17th,
Yeah,
2015, I move that we approve that request.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
great.
And what about the
And
public
the
hearing?
public hearing?
Oh, yeah, you can close that, too.
So I move that we close the public hearing for the site plan administrative review of 46 Watch Hill Drive, the Inley School New Classroom Addition.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Amen.
Thank you very much for staying, we really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Watch,
you, guys.
watch your step in the parking lot, it's dark out there.
Yeah, where are those lights?
Lights? What lights?
There's two that are out.
Oh, thank you.
No, they're not out, they're just off.